So it seems the biggest story today is fake news. They're claiming that the DOJ informed Trump he would be indicted next week, and now that's being revised to say that he's actually just the target of a probe. But we already knew that because they literally raided the guy's house over classified documents. So it seems maybe that CNN is just desperate considering their CEO is gone. Now you got Fox News threatening to sue Tucker Carlson. Now you've got parents in California fighting far left extremists in the street over the grooming of their kids. That one really pissed off the left when I tweeted about that. But it really does seem, I guess, like the actual biggest story right now is the air quality. And so I gotta be honest, it's probably the least, I don't know how to describe it. It's not the most cultural story, but it probably is the most pressing to at least talk about a little bit. And so we're going back and forth. Like, do we just talk about this ridiculous fake indictment story? Or, well, we should probably at least talk about the fact that if you look outside and you're on the East Coast, everything's orange and it's probably going to get worse. So we're in the DC area and it got pretty bad. And so everyone's basically talking about it. Everyone has a lot of questions. So I figure we can at least leave with that and then talk about all the culture war stuff. So before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and purchase our coffee if you'd like to support our work. We are building a parallel economy. If you want to support companies that don't hate you, buy your coffee from us. We're going to be building coffee shops. We're going to be producing more products and giving you alternatives to the woke corporate ecosystem. It's the only way we're going to win. But also don't forget to go to timcast.com, click join us to become a member and support our work directly. As a member, you'll get access to our members only uncensored show Monday through Thursday at about 10 p.m. We put them up. You can hang out and even call into the show and ask us questions. So don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is John Cardillo.
Hey guys, great to be back with you, man. I was looking forward to this.
Absolutely. Who are you? What do you do?
Who am I? What do I do? I'm on Twitter. I get yelled at a lot because I went from Trump to DeSantis. I used to be a cop. Now I'm a boring private equity guy after being on air for a lot of years and occasionally pop up here, hang out with you guys.
Right on.
The extent of it.
Thanks for hanging out.
Nah, it's awesome, man. Good to be back.
We got Seamus.
My name's Seamus Coughlin. I have a YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes where we upload cartoons every single week. So if you guys want to check that out, head over there. We're releasing a cartoon tomorrow that I think is going to be really funny. We're making fun of kind of the Little Mermaid reboot and all these different race-swapped reboots. And I think you guys will enjoy it. And go to freedomtunes.com if you want to help support us, and you'll get an extra cartoon each week that's only available to members on the website.
Ian Crosland here. Happy to see you guys. My nose is itching, so let's get to this. Serge.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I feel you, man. It's been like, first of all, the allergy's bad, and on top of that, all the smoke is not making my life better. Anyways.
Crazy.
Let's jump into this first story. Take a look at this image from CNN. Millions in U.S. under air quality alerts as Canada wildfires rage. You know, we're mostly a political, cultural, and news show, but I think this story is so pressing that we probably should at least talk about it a little bit, because this is going to directly impact you, and it directly impacts us. The concern that I have, of course, is for the chickens. Mm-hmm, yeah. Because this garbage falls on the ground.
Yeah.
And when we had the East Palestine thing, when they're saying all those chemicals were blasting up into the air and floating out here, chickens were dying. And so I'm being somewhat silly by referencing chickens, but when this stuff settles and gets all over the grass and gets all over everything, that's going to cause problems too. So basically, there's wildfires up in Canada. FAA has issued ground stops in New York because the air quality was so bad you couldn't actually see. Where we are in DC, apparently we're being told that it's going to get worse tomorrow, and it's going to persist in New York and on the East Coast until tomorrow as well. So I don't know how many of you guys are experiencing this, but you know, this is the latest. We have this map here, record smog levels in Northeast. And right now you can see it's mostly bad in the New York area. It's going to come down and heavily hit DC tomorrow. So apparently they're saying like where we are, the sky's going to turn orange or something.
You know, all the talk we talk about war and chaos and politics and stuff, man, it's these natural disasters that can really annihilate a civilization.
Oh, yeah.
This is just a taste.
Yeah. I mean, I flew in through this today. I landed in D.C. from South Florida at about, 2:30 p.m. And I was running around to get to the airport this morning. I had no idea I'm ashamed to say, I saw some things on Twitter about Canada. I really had no idea what was going on until the pilot mentioned it. I noticed that it was pretty clear. I mean, we had some clouds, a little bit of bumps, but it was mostly clear. And then this weird haze started, but we weren't hitting turbulence, so when you're typically on approach, you come through the clouds, you're bouncing a bit. It was dead smooth. And the pilot came over, he said, "Oh, if you notice, you can't see the ground. It's this air from Canada." I still had Wi-Fi, and I checked it out. And I'm actually driving after I see you guys today. I'm going to start heading to New York for a family event. And I pinged my nephew before we went live, and I said, "How's the air quality?" He said, "It's absolutely terrible. Like, can't see your hand in front of your face."
Yo, check out this.
Real bad.
Just keep talking about it. Let me play this video. Check this video out.
So the point I was going to make is, Ian, I think you made a very good point about the fact that people don't consider natural disasters, or at least enough, especially as modern people, because we like to think that we're in control of everything. We can solve all of our problems. There's nothing unforeseen that's going to knock us over. And what's strange is even when we are confronted by natural disasters like this, people still want to try to claim that we're in control of them. This happened because we're, burning too much CO2 or putting too much of it out into the atmosphere. This is a human invention. If we only behaved better and didn't make the weather so angry, this wouldn't occur. Like, we can't accept that some things are just out of our control.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. It's very freaky to say, like, we are not in control of this life. Like, at any moment, a meteor could strike and set the world on fire again. A global flood, something could knock out the sun, like block out the sun, like this kind of thing, kill all the crops for 3 to 4 years, mass migrations, and I was going to say suicides.
And you know what the politics of this is? They're saying it's climate change.
No, exactly.
They're like, this is climate change. It's happening now. Everyone, quick run.
It's all man-made, man.
That's what I'm saying. We have to make it our fault. We have to place it under our control. But sorry, you were...
No. I'm just going to say I disagree with you guys. I learned from the Democrats. Al Gore created fire in 2001. Al Gore created everything.
A DARPA project.
It was a DARPA project. He invented the internet. Then Flint and Steel. He created fire, and here we are now. So we should have listened.
So what is it? Is this? This is a joke. Is this a CIA op to go light fires in Canada to get a false flag?
Let me ask you this. We have, and look, it's not funny, but Oregon, Washington, California have these wildfires. They're never called toxic. Why? What the hell is in the Canadian wilderness that's landing orange toxicity?
Whatever it is, it's been
the East
affecting
Coast
Canadians for a long time.
Apparently,
What is causing it?
Wrong.
Maybe that's why maple syrup.
Trees
tastes
are
so good.
burning and the air is moving down and everyone's freaking out. It was kind of crazy. I woke up and because where we are, you can see the mountains.
Yeah.
And there's like a white fog.
It's like a haze.
Right? Yeah, it's a haze. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then I smell burning. That's the crazy thing. You can smell like...
Well, when I landed at Reagan today, it smelled like a campfire out there. I mean, it was real noticeable. But I haven't been checking it. Did they get an indication how it started? I don't know if you guys know.
That's what I'm looking into.
Natural?
Climate change. It was climate change.
It was climate change.
Yeah.
It certainly was. Just
You driving an SUV. That's why this
I
is
drive
happening.
a diesel pickup, so I might be
that's
solely
literally
responsible
it.
for this.
It is entirely your fault.
I saw a video of a helicopter laying napalm to a bunch of trees, but I don't think that was it. That'd be crazy.
Ian's just really, really dead set on going on the CIA
grabbing for straws. This is like
Air America caused this fire.
wildfires, which indicates that they were naturally formed. Well, I mean, I guess a human could cause a wildfire.
Yeah, I mean, often these things are arson, but from what I've been reading, it didn't.
They're
seem
saying
like
it's
the
normal. They're
Canadians-
saying it's just higher than normal fire activity.
That makes sense.
And so they say because humans have been pumping so much CO2 into the atmosphere, it's causing a slightly more higher temperature, which means a little bit drier, which means more fire. And, there is something to that. We go a little out of balance and it can send the whole thing out of whack. So that we do have to be careful with CO2 levels, but that doesn't mean cease production. Just got to figure out how to reuse the stuff or continue to reuse the stuff.
Yeah, I think part of this instinct to blame this on man-made climate change, firstly, it's very convenient because you get to blame it on your political opposition if you're on the left. Like, literally everything is the fault of conservatives. You go outside and you don't like the weather. It's like, well, this is some Republican politician's fault, surely. It reminds me of a quote from the one and only Thomas Sowell. He said, good things just happen and bad things are somebody's fault. That is exactly how we think. That is just our default pattern. And so something like the weather, right, is something like New York being covered in this smog and it traveling across the country. Well, that has to be somebody's fault. Like, bad things can't just happen, or things that bother me can't just happen. I have to be able to blame someone.
Even in the Bible, it's the flood. They said that God sent the flood. Like, why can't we just accept that it could have just happened? Why do we have to blame somebody?
Because he sent it.
I guess we have to blame God for this one.
Yeah,
right?
somebody had to do it. I mean, look, I live in Florida, and they try to tell you hurricanes are man-made. I mean, like, hurricanes never happened before the Industrial Revolution. I mean, it's bizarre. It's
We started
moronic.
doing that, yeah. And honestly, it was not a well-marketed product. People still don't like them, but
Right.
someone started making them for some reason.
I like when they say stuff
Tornadoes
like
as
it's
well.
the highest temperature on record, and it's like, and how far back do the records
Exactly.
go?
270 years.
Eight-
Does
1890.
it even go back? Is it
Okay.
270?
I don't
It was
know.
like
No, it's
100
less.
or
Yeah, it's like 1890.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like
Yeah,
we
it
didn't,
can't be
record
that long.
the temperature that for that long. No, look, you can look back at the ice sheets. They do the drilling, they pull out core samples, and then they measure and all that stuff. That I can respect that, but like, there's so many rhetorical tricks to blame anything that can't be explained. It's almost like the Democrats are acting like shaman, coming to the
Yes.
people and being like, it's because the gods are angry and you've got to give me money and do what I say now.
right.
Yes, well, no, that's a very typical thing. We see that throughout all of human history. A group of people who are in power saying the reason the weather is not favorable is because you aren't obeying us.
And sacrifice your kids.
Exactly.
If you give-
human sacrifice.
Well,
we
no,
need to
hold on.
reduce the population size, or else we're going to get more climate change.
Wait. Is that-
Sacrifice your children to the sun god.
Yeah. Did they really sacrifice their kids to affect weather?
I think so.
Different- yeah,
The
I mean, different groups of people throughout
Aztec, the
history
Aztecs and the
have.
Mayans apparently did. So I guess how many carbon credits does Baphomet take to give us a break here?
Oh, that's
No, but it's real.
How do we offset that?
Different groups of people throughout history have engaged in human sacrifice, and one of the reasons, depending
Yes.
on the tribe or group, was
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
better
this-
weather, a
okay,
more
so-
favorable harvest.
Well, they wanted it for rain.
Hold
for
on.
harvest.
This is actually really interesting. This is from March 11, 2019, National Post. Ancient civilizations sacrificed more than 100 of their children to stop bad weather, say archaeologists. It's really funny because that's basically what Democrats are saying now when they write these stories saying don't have
Yes.
kids because climate change is getting worse.
Yes.
They're like, they're not saying to literally take your children and sacrifice them on an altar. They're saying forego having children, make
Yeah.
that sacrifice.
Pre-sacrifice
Well,
them.
Well, no, it's like sacrifice your
Something
family.
Or with abortion.
preemptively sacrifice them by just not having them.
No. Like,
Or abort 'em.
It would be like sacrificing. It's
Yeah.
not sacrifice in the sense of you take a child and you put them on the altar. It's never have
Never
a
have
child.
them.
Well,
That's what I'm
also,
saying,
and I think, this is multifaceted. So most people who don't have children, people who choose not to have children will often say things like, it's because I care so much about the climate. No, it's not. That's almost certainly not, right? It's because you want to have the dual income, no kid situation going on most of the time. And you can acknowledge that. Don't sit there and tell me it's because you care so much about the climate. I think that's usually not the case. But that said, when you look in ancient Rome, this is something archaeologists have discovered. Just in various periods, you have like increases in infanticide when people were having more sex and they were having sex outside of marriage and they didn't know what to do with the children and they weren't taking care of them. And you can imagine this being a trend historically too. I mean, people saying, I have a child, I don't want to take care of them, so I will sacrifice them in trying to make their horrific act of infanticide out to be something noble and good. And so they say, well, this is like for the sun god, or this is so that we have a better harvest, when in reality, they had that cruelty in them and wanted to do it.
Yeah,
If it's so right now we're in a record low temperature. For I tweeted about it yesterday. It was like 49 degrees at night. Wow. And it's crazy. It's like it's springtime or whatever. And no matter what happens, the climate change people always have an argument as to why, whatever it is.
Yes.
So they stopped saying global warming because we started getting cold periods, and they said no, it's climate change. And I'm like, dude, it's a record low now, it's a record high later, but no matter what happens, you keep telling me it's the same thing.
Exactly.
Now I have no problem recognizing pollution and saying, like, I don't believe the planet can hold infinite humans. That literally makes no sense. But don't come to me and tell me no matter what happens, it's perfect for your argument.
Exactly. I mean, maybe you can make the argument, yeah, there is such a thing as too much CO2 and we want to keep the elements in balance and it can be bad for life on the planet. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that every single thing that happens with respect to the climate is a result of human behavior, what you have is a circular hypothesis, because it started with, first it was global cooling, the world was going to freeze, then it was global warming, and then it became climate change. Okay, you have to build a predictive model that tells us what's going to happen successfully, instead of just bashing us for not going along with your cause and then blaming whatever happens to happen on our bad behavior because of your circular theory.
Now, believe it or not, we actually do have a segue from the weather into the culture war. I kid you not. Now, normally we would just be like, it's a hard segue. We're going to jump to a new story. No. We got a segue with this story from Snopes from a few days ago. Did a church that embraces LGBTQ plus people burn down after a lightning strike? Was this climate change?
White supremacy. Lightning,
Exactly.
lightning is very white. That was absolutely white supremacy.
Good point.
So,
Zeus is a white nationalist.
Zeus is a white nationalist. You see him, the gray hair, the beard, the trident.
That proves all of it.
All the markings.
So
irrefutable.
As sort of a buffer between culture war and the fact that the air is unsafe to breathe, we had this story, and was it you that brought it up, Seamus, or was it Ian?
Oh, no, I brought it up. I saw that on my newsfeed and I started laughing. I was like, is this real? And then it turns out it was.
This guy, Eric Kahn, says, woke LGBTQ plus church gets struck by lightning and burns to the ground.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
Snopes did a fact check, and guess what? It did get struck by lightning. It did burn to the ground. It did support LGBTQ issues, but they won't write true on it.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if they actually were fact checking the claim specifically that it happened because it was a punishment from God? And they were like, fact check, true. We have to admit it. It's true this time. We'll give them that. And
But look,
being objective.
Normally, Snopes will be like, true, thing happened, false, mostly false. In this article, it says, okay, so it's from today, actually. Did a church that embraces LGBTQ plus people burn down after a lightning strike? The answer is yes, it did. It quite literally did. Now, that's not to say God literally struck the church down, but Snopes won't even write true here. Yeah, so they say...
Snopes have an explanation.
On June 6th, a viral tweet with a video of a church building fire began to receive thousands of engagements. The caption of the tweet read, woke LGBTQ plus church gets struck by lightning and burns to the ground. In the story, we've laid out the facts. Okay, blah, blah, blah. They say the tweet was captured June 2nd. The church did embrace these issues over the past several years. So that's all you really need to understand. And of course, they don't want the narrative to be that a thing like this did happen. Do you guys remember when the George Floyd mural exploded when struck by lightning?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, man.
I mean, I gotta say twice. I don't know.
Yeah, but stuff like this might happen all the time.
Also,
right.
And like, no.
But the question is, how do you determine whether it's something beyond or something just...
Well, I think you also have to look at, to be rational for a second, which is boring. I mean, it looks like a pretty rural area. It might have just been the tallest building in town with a steeple, which would have logically attracted the lightning.
But they don't want to inflame the radical right.
No, right.
Christian, what do you call them?
The church was already inflamed.
That believe God will strike you down kind of thing.
Right, which is, to me, has been a problem for the conservative movement for years. That's a whole nother show.
I think that there is something to be said for this, right? Because obviously we're sort of being facetious about this lightning, or this mural being struck by lightning and the church being struck by lightning.
No, I don't know about that mural, bro.
But I will say, I'll say this.
Yeah, that was like flat against the wall.
I think this specific thing got struck by lightning is actually a more convincing argument than the weather is vaguely changing, so we're going to blame X, Y, and Z. Like you actually have a specific target there, so it makes more sense to make the argument.
You have a very complicated argument that consistently morphs to fit whatever the left's political views are. And then you have, does God smite? No, that George Floyd thing, I don't know, man. This is why...
So you'll say George Floyd, but not this church? For shame, Tim.
I think the George
because
Floyd
buildings
mural,
get struck by lightning.
No, I know.
The George Floyd mural was a flat brick wall, and the only thing that exploded off the wall was the picture of just George Floyd, and it was like one small storm cloud floating over and went...
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
That was
We
like
need to
sniper
conduct a
level.
study.
Yeah, that was like...
God is a sniper.
Sniper smiting.
We need to do a survey to find if LGBTQ churches get struck by lightning more often.
If they do,
If they do, then absolutely.
so anecdotally, I went to Burning Man, and there's at the end of the Burning Man week, there's the temple that everyone like puts their old thoughts and feelings. They all have like notes from dead loved ones, things they want to like let go of and grieve over. They put them in the temple, and the energy at the temple when you go to the temple is just like siphoning up, and it was tough to get near that place, and I was tripping. So I could be out of my mind, but I think there might be something to like honing energy into physical objects. Complete anecdotal nonsense. Of course, religions from time immemorial talk about it, imbuing an idol and things like that.
And cultures have sacrificed children to the weather for millennia.
Yep.
I think people are known to have called lightning. Is that like...
What if like it turns out that you actually do have to sacrifice your kids to Moloch to stop the weather from going bad?
But I'll tell you, stranger things are happening around us. I mean, let's face it, if these crazy things started happening, Would anybody be really that surprised at this point?
I certainly
if-
would
like
not.
if-
Yeah.
like if
would
the
we really
ground-
go, oh my God, this can't happen at this point?
I'm pretty sure if the ground split, a fissure emerged in DC with like lava bubbling up, and Moloch emerged with
Right,
glowing red
right.
eyes, people would be like, huh. That
Still to
explains
be
it.
like,
Well, they were
fact
right.
check. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the fact that it is Washington, D.C. Moloch could have arisen anywhere.
With this church lightning strike, I would believe more that it's a directed energy weapon from like space than it is God.
Why?
If I had to pick.
But like, who would do it though? As a directed
Russians.
laser?
And why pick? Why
Yeah,
pick
because Putin doesn't like gay people.
Spencer, Massachusetts as your target of opportunity?
Right. So division. You know, you want to you want to set people on their heels.
Spencer, Massachusetts.
Or the Church of Spencer. I don't know. Is it?
Putin is like, we must target Spencer.
I'm gonna
This
take
one
this a
will go
step
down
further.
well.
But it turns out the church was actually like a covert CIA
Yeah,
base
so like a
of
listening
operations.
station, where Putin was just
what's under the
slighted
church.
there once at a massage parlor or something like that.
Well, I think we can take this a step further. The reason this church was struck by lightning was because of climate change, which is the fault of Republicans. Therefore, this is a hate crime. Boom.
I'm just going to blame it on Liz Warren.
Yeah,
When did this?
it's always a safe bet.
Yeah.
Did it get struck today or yesterday? Was it after the wildfire?
No, this is from June 2nd. Someone super chatted John Fisher saying there's satellite footage showing all the fires in Canada starting at the exact same time. Totally not suspect. It says not suspicious.
I'm seeing this online now too.
People are saying that.
Yeah. I
that
just
a,
got that tweeted at me.
Could
So
be
what are
like
they
a
implying? Arson?
So they're implying that someone has some kind of space laser that they can use to start fires with.
or like a temporal
That seems silly.
critical mass. Temporal, is that the right word? Temperature wise, critical mass. Like it hit a certain temperature and then everything got really flammable at like 96 degrees.
You'd have
or
to have like a very, very powerful laser in space to be able to hit the Earth with that kind of, to start a fire.
But I will tell you guys something, another anecdote. But about 12 years ago, I was outside of Vegas. So I said, let me take a ride by that area, Area 51 and those entrances. And there's a couple of little businesses there. And I'm talking to a guy who's a local. Maybe 100 people live around there. And the guy was a normal, rational guy. He worked in Vegas for the casinos and all, contractor. And I said to him jokingly, I said, do you guys see UFOs? He goes, no, that's all nonsense. He said, but you got to see. He said, some nights you'll sit out here and these energy weapons, he said, would blow your mind. Some of the stuff we see him test, only because you can't avoid it, right? It's just these big, vast areas and against the contrasted dark sky. So the capability is certainly there. I mean, if the military hasn't been shy about alluding to the fact that these things exist at this point. I mean, we have Space Force, right? Clearly, we didn't make Space Force a branch of the military to do research and horticulture 18,000 miles up or whatever it is, how many miles up we are. So there's definitely something to that. I mean, I got to believe we've got weapons floating around up there.
And, and we just said Canada's had it too good for too long. We're going to...
They really have. Come on, they've been like a very like...
I actually don't know about that. Has
It's
it been
not the
that great?
Canadians, it's the trees.
the trees there.
We're
It's the
upset by it.
trees.
They're upset about the CO2. It's
The trees were saying some naughty words and hate speech
they
and all
were.
that.
Yeah, those ents.
Yeah.
We hear about Lockheed Martin's compact fusion reactor. They started this program in 2010. It's a fusion power project at Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works. And so if they're public about a fusion program,
What aren't they public
yes,
about?
and how much energy can they actually direct? Probably.
Oh, dude. I saw a tour of a nuclear submarine just on the news. And I'm just like, okay, if they're publicly showing
That's right.
us how to do this, then
what do we have?
then we got something way crazier.
Yeah, think about it, right? We found out about the stealth fighter, not the bomber, not the B-2, the F-117, that Nighthawk, somewhere in like the late 80s, early 90s, right? That thing was operational since 1978. We found out about that 12, 13 years later. So
And
who
people-
knows? What
People probably thought it was aliens.
They probably did.
They did.
They
Yeah.
certainly did, right? And the B-2. So what in the world are we deploying now? We know about these things and they're out there.
Flying cubes.
I wish that I
Talking
could
plasma?
I wish I could remember the exact. I wish I could remember the exact example he gave me. But when I had Jimmy Aiken on my show yesterday, he was talking about the fact that there was a fighter that the stealth fighter the government was testing, and people were seeing it, and they thought it was extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
And the government was basically like relieved and letting people believe that because they didn't want people to be on to their capabilities.
Oh, so that's probably
Yeah.
why this new disclosure came out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they'll
when we're at war
misdirect,
with
sure.
Russia, that's also a point he made, right? Right when the United States is getting involved in one side of a conflict. And he was also saying that the U.S. sort of wanted the USSR to think that we were in contact with extraterrestrials so that they would be afraid that we had alien firepower, which is completely insane. But apparently there's like actual records that the government was interested in this strategy. And so you see this whistleblower who's coming out and saying that, we're studying this craft that wasn't made by humans right at the same time that we're getting involved in this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. You think, yeah, maybe one explanation here is it's a psyop, and we want the Russians to believe that we do have an alien craft, which is crazy.
Isn't this the premise to The Men Who Stare at Goats?
Yes, right. That really happened though. The United States tried to trick the Russians into thinking that we were trying to develop telepathy. So then the Russians heard that and they said, "Oh my goodness, America is trying to research telepathy." So they actually started doing it, and then we saw they were doing it, and we actually tried to start doing it. We psyoped ourselves into trying to develop telepathic methods.
Did it work?
No, they tried to give people heart attacks. They tried to get these psychics together, to your earlier point, to channel energy,
but
to give them heart attacks.
Maybe it did work.
And apparently it didn't work, and they disbanded, or maybe it did work. And
I heard that they teach CIA assets not to, if they're following someone, not to stare at the person they're following, because it'll give the person a tendency to turn around, like when you're being watched, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's not normal.
And apparently there are people who have come out and said remote viewing is real. That the U.S. military worked on it and actually were able to engage in remote.
I was
viewing.
looking at. I did a bonfire a couple nights ago, and I was looking at the coals after the fire was over, and just like the way they were moving and like all kind of glowing in senescence. I don't know what the right word is. In essence, it was like, dude, I can see how ancient shaman would stare into the coals and see visions, because it like almost takes your brain over, man. And you might just see what you think you want to see, but that is a meditation.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Ian keeps everybody here honest.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, embers are. It is actually interesting, just sort of the way fire operates. There's so much beauty in nature that I think it'd be misunderstood, but that certainly like lends itself to the human mind creating something more from it.
Did you guys watch the CIA whistleblower 2 days ago talk about the alien thing? It's the most. Yeah. I watched it and it was like, okay, this guy's lying. This is obviously lying. The way he said, he's like, I swear to God, it happened. Like he didn't say swear to God. He said something the way he used a word that was like, that made it very apparent that he was like lying. Maybe we can watch it or bring it up at some point. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I watched his interview.
It's like 30 seconds long.
I didn't get a chance to see it.
He wasn't convincing. No, he's right. It was more like, trust me, bro.
Yeah.
Like I did I saw it. Trust me, bro. No, you're not going to get any proof. He wasn't. There have been more convincing whistleblowers. The only thing that worked in his favor, I think, is that his attorney was a pretty well-respected guy. He was the DODIG, Inspector General, who is insisting that he believes him. Now, again, I didn't believe him either, but he's certainly not, this guy's a government employee. He's not making the kind of money that one would make to retain an attorney like this if the attorney thought it was all BS. So it makes you wonder why this guy would take on the case, why this guy would put his reputation in front of it, unless he was read in to a different program and they're using this as a disinformation tool to throw the bad guys off.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Like we're about to start deploying some crazy stealth or like energy weapon tech over Ukraine, and they want him to think it's alien.
Yeah, so you go to an old DODIG guy who probably still carries his clearance. His TSSCIs were reputable, and you tell him, hey, play ball here. You were one of us for a while. Help play ball here, help spread this, and it serves its purpose.
Okay, wait, I found a clip. It's hard to find a lot. This is only 6 seconds.
David Grush.
Believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
And believe it or not, who says believe it or not when they're trying to tell someone what happened? And believe it or not, Tim, it really happened.
Yeah.
Come on, no one talks like that.
No. Yeah.
He's trying to convince the guy.
He looks like every guy we locked up for something who tried to convince us he didn't do it.
Well, we were going to segue from weather into culture war issues and turn it to weather and aliens instead, because you just can't control where it goes. So now we're going to hard segue back.
But you can control the weather.
You can.
If you sacrifice.
Or with lasers or
space lasers.
Silver iodide.
Oh, yeah.
Not space lasers, quite literally, just infrared lasers are used to seed clouds.
Seed clouds.
And they use silver iodide as well, and they've done that since the 60s. And it's really funny that if you tell someone that the government controls the weather, the implication is that you're crazy, and it's like I learned this in grade school.
Right.
They showed us a book, and they're like cloud seeding. Here's how it works.
I think they do it over Dubai. Is it? They made it rain over Dubai.
Yeah, they do that, and it was public. I mean, they made a media event out of it. There's no secret there.
Yeah, it condenses all of the water vapor into clouds, making rain come down. Yeah.
I want to start controlling lightning. I want to know more about their lightning programs.
The problem with lightning is that you can't measure the charge, the voltage, whatever. And so I was reading about why we don't capture lightning energy to use. And it's like, you can't measure it, so you can't store it properly. You need to know, volts, amps, or whatever, the power that's coming through to be able to accurately, but you can't do that.
Did you guys see the blue sprites above Earth's atmosphere when lightning strikes? It sends a blue flame out into space. Like the lightning comes down, and as it's coming down, a piece of blue flame goes out and up. So there's like some cosmic
that's
crap.
great. That does look very cool.
You're looking at a blue sprite.
Have you ever just one more thing about lightning before we move on? Next time there is a lightning storm where you are, get the slow-mo camera out on your iPhone if you have one and just film. It's crazy to watch that in slow motion.
Don't
That
run
was a howling wind. Did you hear that?
Don't
Yeah,
run
I
into
did hear that. That's
lightning
whatever you
is
do,
absolute-
don't run into the gay church.
Don't do it. Lightning's spectacular, man. I love it.
Let's jump to this story we got from the Daily Signal. 3 arrested after Antifa clashes with Armenian parents at California school board meeting. This is significant. Regular people are saying no over and over and over again. We've got the Bud Light effect. You've got Target. And now you've got parents showing up saying, we politely requested that these books not be in our schools. Now we're protesting. Then the far left shows up, these extremists, and start attacking parents.
Yeah.
Now you've got clashes. This is where things get crazy, because if you've got regular guy wearing hoodie and jeans being like, look, man, I don't know why they gave my kid that book, and then some crackpot far left extremist shows up, those regular people are not going to vote.
No, they're not. And I'm going to
they're now going to vote. They're going to
the regular people are going to vote.
Right.
And I was going in a different direction. I'm going to use a word the left loves, especially when they deploy their DEI and ESG initiative. They love the term stakeholder. So at CPAC, I did a panel on debanking because our fund experienced it because we did some work in the defense sector, ammo, et cetera, and we were debanked from a couple of banks. And one of the words they love, they've changed the nomenclature for who's invested from shareholder to stakeholder, right? So the stakeholder, according to these big banks like SVB that went under and the really woke banks, First Republic out in California, they consider the homeless guy sleeping in the ATM lobby a stakeholder now.
That's right.
Right? But in this scenario, Antifa, whomever they were, they have no stake in this whatsoever. No stake whatsoever. So the parents, the kids, the teachers, the administrators, the school board, local elected officials, you can argue they're all stakeholders. I hate the stakeholder term anyway. But the radical leftists who showed up had no stake in this. They were showing up simply to be instigators. And everybody's trying to make this about Armenian Americans and this and that. No, these are just parents who are fed up. They've had enough. You saw it, not far away from here in Loudoun County. And here, these people said enough's enough. And I think that's the way. Now, I'm not trying to get in anybody's head, but I think that's how many of these parents saw it. It wasn't we're a certain, demographic and this is politically ideological and we're opposed to them because we're conservative and they're... No, I think they're just basically saying, these are our kids. What the hell business do you have here? And why are you coming here to disrupt the way we want our kids taught and the way we want to parent? And as we've seen, you guys, Tim, you've been out there and in the streets with this stuff. They instigate, and they've always gotten away with it. And this time they didn't. They just had fed up parents who had enough, who wanted to protect their kids. And I think you're going to see more and more of this because people are just, look, you can do a lot of things. Don't come after people's kids. When you start coming after people's kids, bad things happen.
Yeah, it makes people desperate. Like you see the mother bear, the female bear.
Great enough, yeah.
How it'll just go completely blood. Like it's not even bloodlust. Like it wants to hurt. It wants to protect the child. And it will annihilate anything.
Even if you're well-meaning, you see a little cub, you want It's just
you just want to pet it and
hold
pet
it
and
cuddle
cuddle
it.
it.
if you're well-meaning, I think that a lot of the
Definitely don't do that.
people in this movement, this political movement, the trans movement, or whatever you want to call it, are for them. They believe they are well-meaning,
right?
But it doesn't matter if people find a threat towards their children. So you need to understand that people.
But you're not. But if you're
also
also
not well-meaning.
Right?
If you remove the bear cub, you're not well-meaning.
predators. Yeah.
You're not.
These are people who are intentionally targeting children with overt adult content.
That's right.
Matt Walsh, the Daily Wire. We'll get more in depth in this after we wrap up this story. Did an expose where he found this rubber stamping of procedures, of section procedures, because these companies are getting tons of money for it. They are not well-meaning. They are selfish, egotistical, violent narcissists who are in a cult.
I just rewatched the music video of "We'll Convert Your Children." You remember that?
Oh yeah.
"We'll convert your children." Like smiling and like, yo, you can't just joke and say that out loud.
They're not joking.
I know.
not joking.
They said they were joking. Like a week later, 2 weeks later.
they're not.
Backlash.
After the fact.
They're like, yeah, we were just playing around. Like, you just told people you were going to convert their children
And
into
explain
some
how they do it. They said they're going to get their friends. They're going to bring them
bit by
places.
bit. Yeah.
Yep. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You can't control what your kids see.
This is like the boys' choir or
They're
something?
talking about giving your children access to adult content to indoctrinate them.
Yeah.
They're doing it now.
Yes.
And so I'm surprised it took this long for parents to realize and to be active.
And for the record, it was the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir
Right,
who was
right.
made this video where it was like a bunch of guys singing about how they're going to convert your children. I mean, whoa.
But listen, it's not the parents are fed up now because the bad guys, the groomers, call them what you will, are getting closer physically, closer in proximity to the kids. When I left law enforcement, going back to the early mid-2000s, I worked quite a bit right before I left and then after with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I wish I could unsee some of the imagery and some of the case files I saw that I wouldn't get into here. It wouldn't be appropriate. But what I will tell you is this has been around for a long time. NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, they skirted laws for years because they're First Amendment protected, right? They say, well, we're simply disseminating information on nations that have lax laws for sex with kids, or if you want to protect kids, don't go to these nations that have child sex tourism. That's how they get around it. But if you really want to get into their psyche, there's a great book. It was written probably in the early to mid-90s by an FBI agent. The guy's name, this is when the Bureau actually did some good work and wasn't a political persecution squad. I believe the guy's name was Bob Hamer, and it's called The Last Undercover. And it's about he's pretty much spent, he was an anomaly. He pretty much spent his entire career undercover. He wasn't a guy that did field work for a while, then did it for a little bit and came back. He just had a knack for it. And this guy did everything from biker gangs to La Cosa Nostra. His last one was embedding with NAMBLA, and he embedded as a trust fund guy who was a pedophile. And the things they would do, like back when there was a mall at Herald Square in Manhattan, they would congregate, a group of these pedophiles, these men from like their mid-30s to their 70s, would go to the mall in Herald Square on the second floor and watch the kids come in after school and pick their targets. And this has been going on, but we tried, we went after NAMBLA, and Nick Mack went after NAMBLA and the Bureau, and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, is very good at this, one of the best in the world. We joked about Canada, the RCMP has really talented child sex crimes investigators, but these guys are smart. And the scary thing is they're often well-funded and they don't fit a profile. Anybody in this room could fit the profile. Anybody in a restaurant can fit the profile. It's really difficult to tell who they are, but they are proactive and they are some of the worst predators you'll ever see. Now what they're doing, they've been so emboldened for so long by knowing how to play the system and knowing how to frustrate law enforcement that they've gotten closer and closer, and now they're comfortable physically getting into the schools, becoming teachers, becoming administrators. Now, I'm not going to go off on conspiracy tangents about global pedophile networks and all. Yeah, there are definitely global child sex trafficking networks. This is a law enforcement established fact, right?
Isn't Maxwell in jail because of that?
She's 100% in jail because
So
of
it
it.
confirms
No, I'm
it's
saying
real.
that. What I'm saying is I don't think, Hillary Clinton's personally abducting kids and the Podesta brothers are helping her in vans, picking the kids up. And we've seen those things too. I'm not going to go down that road. But there are definitely child sex trafficking networks around the world. We know this, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, one of the groups that actually has helped are the Mexican cartels, because they know it's bad for business, right? If you talk to federal law enforcement or intelligence community, they'll tap the cartels for information on some of these sex traffickers, because the cartels know, look, they want to sell their drugs, right? And they'll traffic adult women in prostitution, but they know kids are really bad for business. That's when we send special operators down there to start killing people if they start abducting kids to solve the problem. But they've gotten very bold because they've gotten away with it for so long. They haven't been prosecuted. Now they are in the schools. That's not conspiratorial. They're being handcuffed and pulled out, and you're not seeing the stories because the left-wing media doesn't want to validate what the right's been saying.
But
Exactly.
but I think you're talking about the superliminal, and the issue at play now is the subliminal.
Well, I think they go hand in hand,
There's
though.
both.
Well,
They go hand in hand.
But this story is they pretend to be activists. They use cover of media. So I referred to one journalist as likely a pedophile because she was covering up overt pedophilic actions. You've got this one teacher now, I think what's her name? Sarah Bonner or something like that, in Illinois, instructing young children on how to use adult anonymous gay sex apps.
Right.
Why would a teacher go to children and say, read this? There's only one answer.
But I don't see that as subliminal. I see that as overt and
No,
overt act.
that's overt. What I'm saying is that when you get activists in the media defending it, saying it's you hate gay people, that is the subliminal. That is the manipulation,
Right.
where they are taking control of the machine. I tell you, if there is no pushback, and I don't see this becoming a reality, but they will try to legalize this stuff.
Yeah,
Well, they will certainly.
Of course they will.
They will. But to your point, Tim, about these journalists and all, and you see them as pedophiles themselves, you're 100% right. Here's a case that isn't a pedophilia case, but I think it's a good parallel. I don't know if you guys remember a lawyer named Lynn Stewart. She was the lawyer for Abdul Rahman, the blind sheikh. He was the guy behind the first World Trade Center bombing in '93.
Right,
one
right,
that wasn't
right.
too devastating.
Yeah.
And for years, federal law enforcement knew that he was her client, but they knew she was assisting, aiding, abetting, and she would always stand behind her law license and privilege. Well, finally, they had enough, and they knew it was the crime fraud exemption, right? They knew what she was doing. They were able to get surveillance in the federal holding facility, saw that he was giving her kites, prison notes. She was passing information on to these terrorists, enabling his terror network, and she eventually was convicted, prosecuted, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same thing these journalists who are sympathetic to this are doing. They're enabling it, and they should be prosecuted as such.
I just looked up philia.
Well, that's a very, very difficult line. It's one thing if there's an active terrorist giving instruction to a terror network and you're acting as a courier for that illegal information.
But if you're giving, see, here's where I disagree with you. If you're giving them cover by using your law license to shield, how do we know these journalists aren't doing the same? How do we know
if the
they're
journalist
not
engages in
participating?
an illegal activity, by all means, prosecute them. If a journalist has a disgusting opinion, fire them and make what they do unthinkable.
But what I'm saying is most normal human beings would not be permissive of such heinous behavior unless they had a stake in it somehow.
Right. So I think there's probable cause there.
Yeah, or at least reasonable suspicion to start looking deeper to get to the PC to get the warrants. Yeah,
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah, you made this point about people infiltrating the public school system, and I think that's very important because what the left and the dominant media culture has made very clear to the American people is that if you are someone who wants to abuse children, as long as you're using they/them pronouns or the pronouns of the opposite sex, they will treat anyone who regards you with suspicion as a bigoted person who shouldn't be listened to.
that's right. That's right.
I just looked up philia. This is a lot of like wordplay that people have been doing. Pedophilia. Philia is a type of love from Greece, ancient Greece, and it's the type of love that translates as friendship, the love of friendship. Philia, it's fine. But eros,
Hemophilia.
yeah, eros is love, sexual love. Now these people are pederotic. They're not pedophilic.
a great point.
They might be both, but you got to call them pederosts. At the very least, like it's about it's not about. I mean, it is weird for a grown adult to be friends with a 9-year-old kid that's not their son, but it's the erotic love that's the problem.
You know what? I had a former federal prosecutor, good guy, who did these trainings at NCMEC, who would drum that into everybody's head. They're not pedophiles, they're pederasts. He would say exactly what you just said because he wanted to draw that distinction. It goes back to a lot of what we say, right, in conservative or libertarian media, that language does matter. Don't let the left own the narrative. Don't let them create new terms. He was adamant about that, so you're spot on with that.
Oh, that's good. Who was that did that?
It was, I forget the guy's name. We had a bunch of trainers. I forget his name. He was an FBI agent back when the Bureau was good, and then he was a federal prosecutor. I got to dig it up for you.
Yeah, man, love is not love. There are many different types of love, and that is super important.
Let's jump to this story. We have a major story from the Daily Wire. This is crazy. My jaw hit the floor when I saw this. Matt Walsh undercover investigation catches trans healthcare providers rubber stamping sex change surgeries. Basically, they had a producer call in, and within 22 minutes in a virtual appointment, even after saying they weren't dysphoric, the person wrote a letter saying they were. And it's simple. There's a lot of money to be made in rubber stamping these things and sending them out, and you are protected politically when you make money this way. The Daily Wire reports some of the nation's largest trans healthcare providers are rubber stamping approvals for life-altering sex change procedures and even falsely representing health diagnoses of patients so insurance companies will cover the medical expenses. Daily Wire host Matt Walsh revealed in a tweet thread Wednesday. So apparently, these doctors will say explicitly, if we don't give you this diagnosis, the insurance will not cover it. So you need to be diagnosed this way. And then let me actually, I think I have the thread here. I think he explicitly brings up that his undercover producer says that he's not dysphoric. Let me see. He says the letter keeps capitalizing orchiectomy, is that how you pronounce it? Without "and" before it, as if it's just been copy-pasted into a template. Greg followed up to learn why he had been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Plume admitted they just use letter templates provided by WPath. He says, just checking on this to make sure this will be okay in the letter. I'm not really considering myself dysphoric, so wanted to check on that one thing. Otherwise, letter looks great. The doctor says, the care coordinator, hi, Chelsea. Look at this. You get iPhone says she, her, hers. This is redacted, a care coordinator with Plume. I will page your provider on this to see what she says. I know we write letters based on WPath templates, but I can ask your provider if it's necessary to have it. And if not, perhaps it can be removed. Later, Plume's nurse confirmed in order for the surgery to be paid for, the dysphoria diagnosis would need to remain. At the same time, the nurse appeared to confuse as to why Chelsea Bussey had requested testicle removal in the first place. Saying, let's see. So Chelsea Bussey, which is the undercover, this is a male producer for Matt Walsh. Thanks for getting back to me. I was just saying I don't feel dysphoric right now, but it's okay to keep in the letter, right? The nurse says, nurse practitioner, oh, okay, well, the surgery is related to the gender dysphoria, which you diagnosed with. It is controlled with HRT, but in order to get the surgery to be paid for a GCS, it will need to be related to gender dysphoria, which you are diagnosed with. Does that make sense? Or is the orky not gender confirming? So it seems like basically what they're uncovering. These companies, they don't care. They want the money.
They want the money. Look, I can't get my dog on an airplane with a letter from a doctor anymore, but in 22 minutes, you can be castrated and it can be paid for by insurance. I mean, this is sheer insanity.
Whole industry's insanity right now.
Yeah, it's marketing. They're marketing. And look, it's the same as the vaxxers, right? And they're marketing.
But they're protected. And this is the crazy thing.
They're protected. That's right.
Jimmy Dore had such a great bit that I saw today. He was like, when it came to big pharma, people say, don't do your own research. The media comes out, don't do your own research. It's like, what? That's crazy. We used to call doing your own research reading. You're saying not to read. And he goes, we would never tell.
That was an excellent bit.
He said, we would never tell anyone to not do their own research in any other area. Yeah. Imagine if you were like, oh, I think I'm gonna go buy a new car. Don't look into it. Well, if I don't, how am I supposed to know what car to get? Ask the salesman. He's the expert.
Yeah, it was a great bit.
It's really absolutely fantastic.
The salesman, he's the expert. No, it's brilliant.
It's worth watching.
What we have with big pharma and these medical practices, political protection, far left extremists saying, do not look into it. And the media saying, that's right. If you do, something's wrong with you.
Yep.
Remember when the New York Times wrote not to think critically? Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, man, I don't know how to help these people. Genuinely. If they're like, I was told not to think critically, so I stopped.
Well, like, listen, okay, I mean, since we were like 5 years old, right? Nursery school, kindergarten, you're told. I mean, it was like the most ubiquitous statement on the planet when you came to doctors. Get a second opinion.
Yeah.
Until we learned Fauci's name. Then, anyway, if you got a second opinion, you were a crazy conspiracy theorist. You were anti-science. You didn't trust the experts. Give me a break.
Mm-hmm. Look at this. Give me a break. This is crazy. Matt Walsh posts the letter, which says, she reports ongoing gender dysphoria, despite the fact that in texts, the producer said, I do not have dysphoria.
Right.
So this is also something that we learned a number of months ago when Jamie Reed, who was working at a clinic that was giving treatment towards minors, came out and basically said that there's
I had it backwards.
Routine
sorry,
that takes place.
I had to correct. I have it backwards. That was the earlier tweet. They then asked about it, and he then said he didn't have dysphoria. So my mistake. Sorry, continue.
No, I was just saying that a whistleblower named Jamie Reed, who was working at the St. Louis Transgender Center, was talking about the kind of rubber stamp routine that happens here and how there are these templates, and what they do is give people sort of tips on what they can say to the therapist to ensure that they're going to be given the green light to go ahead with these procedures.
I went to a doctor for a checkup a little while ago, like a month ago, and the doctor was like, how have you been feeling like mentally? I was like, oh, I'm existentially, I got a lot of stress, the World Economic Order, the how it's shifting. And he's like, you want something for that? And I was like, do you want to like do a blood test on me? Do you want a psychological do you want to do an eval first, or do you just want to hand me some Prozac? Like the guy he was so ready to give me the medicine, the drugs.
Yeah. Medicine.
Yeah, the medicine, the psychoactive, whatever, suppressants or whatever the hell they are.
Question for you guys. Do we know which state Greg was chatting with this company. Do we know which state this company was located in?
I think we probably do. Let me.
The reason I ask is my next question is going to be, why isn't the state attorney general opening an immediate insurance fraud investigation on these providers?
Oh, I mean, this is insurance fraud.
This is insurance fraud.
I want to clarify what I was saying with the letter. So first, the letter is posted. Let me grab it from this. Here we go. So in tweet number 13, it says, 3 days later, Plume sent this letter to Chelsea Bussey, who does not exist, saying he was experiencing gender dysphoria. The producer then responded saying, no, I don't. The coordinator then responded, well, it has to be in there. So keeping the letter as is, saying this person has dysphoria, despite the person texting saying, no, that's not true. That's insurance fraud.
That's blatant insurance fraud. I mean, there's your probable cause.
Also, potentially medical malpractice.
These are all over the country. Apparently, this is all over the country.
But the insurance fraud's criminal. That's a felony.
I mean, the fact that the other elements of it aren't criminal is also
That's
an
a whole
indictment of
nother
our
problem.
laws. Yeah. And this is something I mentioned. Jamie Reed is a whistleblower. We also had a Helena Kirshner on, who was describing her experience and the fact that she went to Planned Parenthood and was able to get the maximum dose she could get after a relatively brief conversation where I think she said she didn't even talk to a doctor. I mean, they're just
Planned
pushing
Parenthood
this stuff
for
through.
a few minutes, and then she got the maximum dose of testosterone.
And initially, the person she was speaking with wasn't even going to give her that, but then she asked for it, and they just gave it to her. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so, if you had any other field of medicine where there were this many scandals with this many different whistleblowers coming forward and saying, yeah, there's actually this entire complex set up around trying to give me the proper answers to tell to other physicians to get certain treatments that they're supposed to be vetting me for objectively, we'd be having a national dialogue about it. But we're not, when we're talking about literally amputating body parts that cannot ever be replaced or restored once they're removed, and mutilating children.
The medical marijuana was a racket. They were like,
That's
you
fair.
got to tell them that you have
That's fair.
stress, or they won't give you the medical marijuana card. So you go in and you're like,
right.
I have stress, and then they give you the card.
And then I think in some areas, right, if you said that you had that kind of stress and they gave you a medical card, it actually precluded you from being able to own a gun.
For 12 months.
For 12 months. Okay.
But
You'd have to put that you were a current drug user.
That stuff isn't amputating. There's no amputation. It's a license to buy marijuana, which is ridiculous. I don't know why.
Much less serious than
Yeah,
removing a
they're
body
cutting
part.
an arm off or
Yeah.
a body part off or testicles or whatever.
Yeah, I'm very libertarian on the weed issue. I think I couldn't care less. Couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Never came across any bad guys that were, trying to kill anybody.
But
when
now
they
I'm starting to
stoned
wonder,
others.
to be completely honest.
Are you?
Well, I mean,
Why?
you've got all of these detrimental things that they're trying to pass on to people, so I just don't trust them.
That's a different story. But
if Democrats came out and they were like, we actually think Jell-O pudding's fantastic, I'd be like, I'm not going to eat that. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm with you on
And that
that.
was the thing.
What's
I mean, look,
happening here?
I've said this before. I'm
I don't
absolutely
eat the sugar anyway.
I'm totally against the federal war on drugs. I think if a state wants to, ban marijuana, I'm totally fine with that. But I remember when I was graduating high school about 10 years ago, this was when the massive push was happening for weed to be legalized and when we actually started to see it happen. And all of the arguments being made, instead of making the libertarian argument, which I don't necessarily agree with, but which I think is a better argument, and that is, this might be bad for me, but let me do it. There was so much mythologizing about how this is going to cure your cancer and it's a miracle. It's like, okay, you don't have to do that either, right? You don't have to push it all the way in that direction. But I hear you. That also made me more suspicious at the time. Just all of the bombastic claims about how great it was.
That's marketing, though.
Yeah.
Which, look, Big Pharma is just downright demonic in the way they market these things.
yeah.
Right? I mean, they're marketing. I mean, you watch TV in the middle of the day. I have it on in the background, right, when I'm working. Every other commercial is a pharma commercial for something. The side effects it's a 45-second spot, a 30-second spot. The side effects,
And the
horrible.
side-
Disclaimer
and then-
is
but the
29 seconds.
The side effects often do what you're trying to treat.
That's my point.
And then after that commercial, like 2 commercials later, it's some law firm. It's like, you could be entitled to money
Right,
if you
right.
took this medicine from that same
right.
company that's now been recalled.
Yes,
Like,
but
wait a minute.
There'll be one commercial and it's like, are you suffering from acid indigestion? See if Acidosto is
right for you.
is right for you. Side effects may include explosive diarrhea and headaches. Then the next commercial is, are you suffering from headaches and explosive diarrhea? See if this drug is right for you.
Zantac is going to kill you. No, it's nuts. I mean, it's just crazy, and I think we learned quite a bit about Big Pharma in the last few years. But I think what they've done, John Stossel did a good expose on it years back, where he made a strong argument for Big Pharma. right? I guess his brother works in that industry, and he was saying how, on average, they spend about this was then, about $850 million to develop a drug, and some don't work, others do work, but they're just not prescribed. And so he made a good argument for why certain things cost the way they do. I don't think anyone ever foresaw what we saw in the last couple of years. I mean, you saw a pharma commercial, 1 every 10 commercials. My friends and I are on a
Brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah, my buddies and I are on a text chain. One's a banker for one of the large banks, but he's very politically like-minded. And we just run jokes all day long. Like, have you taken your Skyrizi today? Do you have your Relaxium and your Prevagen? Like, it's just nuts.
Relaxium.
It's just crazy. Every other commercial.
It was when they told me not to question it. Right. I was like, what in the hell is happening?
Don't look into it.
Now?
Trust the experts. Man.
And also them
salesman
saying
knows
that they
best for
weren't
you.
looking into things, right? Like when Fauci was saying he wouldn't even entertain lab leak. You won't even entertain it? You won't even think about it? Really? You just know
stop
that's not
thinking
true?
critically, Seamus.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that the federal prohibition on weed is because of the pharma industry?
100%, right? But right now, the federal government's not prosecuting weed. The DEA, so I got a lot of friends at DEA, their policy right now, I asked one of my buddies who's an agent, this isn't some guy I know, it's a guy who lives in my neighborhood, we socialize. I said, so you guys hit a house, you hit a trap house, and you find, 10 kilos of heroin, you find 15 kilos of coke and 5 pounds of weed. What do you do with the weed? He goes, destroy it. We don't even put it on the charging sheet anymore. Wow. Because DOJ, it's they haven't legalized it, but they've basically decriminalized it. Huh. So they're not even prosecuting for it. It's not even going to show up.
Why destroy it? It's a work.
Yeah, the heroin will be logged, the coke will be logged, but the weed they burn it up or whatever they do.
So that's like they're doing work. Just leave it, ignore it. Like, do you take a kitchen table with you when you?
Well, that's the thing. That's what they seize it because it's still technically illegal, but they don't. That's it. That's where it begins and ends. It gets burned and they're done.
But they just keep it Schedule 1 just in case there's somebody they want to bust.
No,
and
I think you make a good point, right? Because DEA and FDA tend to work hand in hand, right? FDA does the civil enforcement. DEA comes in with the gun. I mean, FDA as armed agents when needed, but the DEA steps in for the bigger stuff. But think about who typically funds and eventually staffs FDA, and that pipeline goes back and forth like John McCain had with the defense industry and his staffers, right? The FDA and Big Pharma trade bodies back and forth. And so you're talking about cutting into massive profits. I've got a buddy who's a neurologist, a pain management doctor. He loves weed for certain chronic pain conditions. He hates prescribing opioids. He doesn't want to do it. He won't do it. He'd rather give a shot, spinal injections, etc. He just hates it. He hates what it does to people. He won't prescribe them anymore. And he's a very successful doctor. The pressure he gets from the pharma reps for being pro weed, and he's not even talking about flower. A lot of times it'll be gummies or vape or edibles, and it's helping his patients. The pressure he gets is unbelievable, he tells me.
Yeah.
So yes, to your point.
And by the way, I want to make the point, even though I mentioned I'm fine with states banning it, like, I don't dispute that there could be legitimate medicinal uses for it. I don't know enough about it, but I've also heard people who are physicians claim that there are good reasons to use it. You mentioned the fact that it isn't generally prosecuted, and Ian, you brought up the point that they could selectively prosecute. I guess, if Trump starts smoking pot, they'll be banging down his door. I'm certain of it.
Well, DOJ has written policy now to not prosecute for weed, and the sister federal agencies, even Homeland, for example, they're not DOJ, they're their own entity, but they're just not prosecuting because the federal prosecutors won't even bring the case.
Is it because they can't get a verdict, or
they just don't care? I mean, look, part of the problem is they're starting to see the revenue, right? So you take Big Pharma's profits out of it. They're kicking back big tax dollars to the federal government, these dispensaries. They're making big money. Right now, if you have a medical marijuana license in Florida, which is that whole seed to sale model, you've got to show, as we sit here today, guys, if you can't show 50 some odd million liquid, around 55 million liquid ready to go, you're not even going to be considered for the license.
Wow.
Yeah, it's real money. If you want to buy an existing operation, they're starting in the 9 figures.
Wow.
Yeah, down in Florida anyway, because you've got it's seed to sale, right? Or it was.
Meaning the people that grow it, also the people that sell it.
Right, they want you to have a holistic ecosystem. They want you to have the land. They want you to have the dispensary. It's all got to be one pipeline. So they call it, seed to sale pipeline.
Well, I think weed should be legal, but I don't like it.
That's it. Right. But again, to your point, let me do it. Not me per se, but if I don't like legislating morality.
Yeah, there needs to be education about dosage, man.
Yeah.
It's about dosage.
Yeah.
Anyone that gets sloppy stoned is probably not in a great state of mind.
Yeah, but they're going to get sloppy drunk.
Yeah, that's way more dangerous.
I agree with you on the morality thing. The issue is that society shouldn't tolerate it. shouldn't tolerate immoral things. And the problem is we have a culture and society that tolerates everything. And so we just have immorality running rampant. And now there's no morality on the left. They have no moral framework at all.
None. Like, take Florida, right? You'll never see, I shouldn't say never, but I can tell you right now, you probably won't see in the short term recreationally legal weed in Florida. And it's really not a political issue. It's the hospitality industry. They're big and they don't like the smell. They think it'll turn guests off. They think if they have a bunch of kids. It's a real
thing, though. There are certain areas that just stink now.
Well, that's it. And their logic is sound. They're like, hey, look, it's one of the other reasons, I mean, not to veer too far off track, that we don't get open carry in Florida is because the hospitality industry, we have a lot of European tourists. Guns aren't as prevalent. They're afraid of it. They won't come. They'll spend their money elsewhere. So I do get that, as much as a 2A absolutist as I am. But with the weed, I've spoken to a few of the hotel ownership groups and all, and they said, look, we don't want to be charging $800 a night in season for a room, have affluent families there. A couple of kids come there by the pool, and then these families start checking out because they don't want their toddlers smelling this and seeing it.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, so it does make sense.
Mm-hmm. At least for flour, like oil,
for flour,
and gummies and edibles.
Well, they don't bother
things.
you for that. Yeah, they're fine with that. They don't. If somebody's vaping at the pool,
but just
it's the flour. They're
no smoking. I mean,
no
doesn't matter,
smoking.
it doesn't matter
Exactly
what you're smoking, you can't
That's
smoke.
right. No smoking.
That's a big part of it too. Is smoke. Smoking is hard on anybody.
That's right. And the cigars too. The same. They don't allow cigars either outside at these pool decks and all.
Sorry that I took us away from the Matt Walsh conversation. That was awesome too.
It's fine.
That is a perfect headline for what we just.
What were you saying, Shane?
No. I think you made a good point though. Oh my goodness.
Oh, this is that New York Times article that Tim was referencing.
Well, misinformation is information they want you to miss.
Don't
right?
go down you got to read it first.
Yeah, I know.
Don't go down the rabbit hole. Critical thinking, as we're taught to do it, isn't helping in the fight against misinformation.
Beautiful.
What a ridiculous,
I know.
just blatantly inaccurate. It's like specifically saying
Don't
the
look
wrong
into
thing. Don't question it. That's not how you.
This is what I was saying about weed. When they start moving to legalize it everywhere, and it's particularly in these states that, you know, kill and sterilize kids, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I trust them. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it should always be that thing on the on the fringe where it's like it's illegal, but you know people do it sometimes. We shouldn't have people in prison for it, but we shouldn't just be explicit with recreational use. I don't know, man. I'm fairly libertarian, so I just ultimately I'll put it this way. I'm becoming more liberal, I suppose, than libertarian in that I'm starting to feel like, one, we need to repair culture desperately so that people aren't giving their kids pot or encouraging recreational use of drugs and things like that. But we also probably do have to legislate to some degree things that we view to be moral.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's really not possible not to legislate morality, right? All law has some basis in morality. But when it comes to this question of misinformation and telling people not to do their own research, I mean, this is so obviously self-serving for the mainstream and for the establishment, you know, exactly why they're telling people this. And it's an example of things kind of coming full circle. I quoted Thomas Sowell on the show earlier tonight, and one thing I remember hearing from him that really got me thinking was he pointed out that in the public school system today, kids are taught that it's very important to make a difference. And he also made the point that they're not taught that it's important to know about the thing you're trying to make a difference about. And when he said that, it resonated with me because that was very much my experience in public school. I had many lovely teachers, but there was kind of this prevailing ethos of go out, change the world, make a difference, and not much of a conversation about how you should also research these things, become knowledgeable about them, really have something to say or do that's meaningful. And now it's actually come full circle to the point where they're openly saying, like, not only should you A, make a difference, but B, you shouldn't do any research about the social change you want to affect. You should just listen to us when we tell you how the system should be rearranged, and then you should do our bidding.
Let's talk about this story from the Daily Mail. Fox threatens to sue Tucker Carlson for violating his contract with the launch of his new Twitter show that 80 million people and counting watched. So why are they doing this? I think they want Tucker Carlson to shut up until after the election. It makes no sense why they would take him off the air, but then also say you can't talk. Like he made a Twitter video and they're saying you've breached your contract. Why?
Yeah.
Because he posted a video of himself on Twitter. That's normal social media. Well, this is what we're just talking about with critical thinking in the press. The press does not want anyone breaking the narrative, so they remove Tucker from the airwaves.
Exactly. And so we saw this with James O'Keefe, right? And Project Veritas coming after him. Again, not knowing a whole lot about the law or the legal precedent that's there. The fact that they would remove him from their organization and then try to stop him from doing his journalistic work when he's no longer with that organization suggests to me, in my personal humble opinion, that there are issues with the journalism he's doing, because he's no longer affecting them in any way unless that's the thing that concerns them. So similarly with Tucker Carlson being ousted from Fox, a lot of people are making the argument that they were only throwing him out into the cold because of this Dominion settlement, even though Tucker didn't really say anything about Dominion. And now you have them trying to silence him, even though they don't have any more liability there. So it makes it perfectly clear that the purpose of casting him out wasn't like to settle a lawsuit. It was because they really didn't like what he was saying, and they're upset that he's saying it somewhere else now.
Yeah, I think it was both, though. I mean, look, they paid out almost a little over $750 million, right? So they're super sensitive to being sued again. At the same time, one of the things I learned, having worked in media as long as I did, is there is a tremendous amount of pettiness in the C-suite, especially when the hosts or particular hosts like Tucker become wealthy and powerful and beyond the reach of that C-suite, of management. They become that. It's not that they're seen as uncontrollable, because you got to extend, your key employees a certain amount of trust, right? You got to let them be who they are, and they're adults and they're responsible. And Tucker never crossed lines, right? He was sensational, but that's what made him good. But they get jealous. It's weird. They get really jealous when the talent becomes more famous, more powerful than them. And I think this became an ego battle. So they say it's about the Dominion lawsuit, and they force him out, and he goes off on his own, and they think, haha, we've got him. He's going to go, bro. I mean, he's a wealthy guy. He's generationally wealthy now. He's fine. But he goes out there, he goes on Twitter, and then they start doing the math, and they realize, wait a second. If this guy takes even a third of his audience with him, and he charges them a couple of bucks a month, a few bucks a month, he's going to be doubling what we paid him. Well, he really doesn't need us. He's not going to come back and grovel. So now it just seems to me to be real petty nonsense. Like they're just going to try to make his life miserable because he doesn't need him.
I wonder how much of this is we must silence certain voices before 2024 or Trump wins. So James O'Keefe, Veritas not only freezes him, they then sue him.
Yep.
Fox News does the exact same thing. Now, look, maybe it's coincidental that almost at the exact same time, Veritas suspends O'Keefe but locks him in the company. Fox suspends Tucker but keeps him in the company, and then both get sued for trying to do their work, to continue their work. It seems a little bit odd. Just saying.
I think the O'Keefe situation was different, though, and I had some unique insight to this because I'm friendly with two different board members who are on opposite sides of the issue. And look, the old saying, right? There's two sides of the story, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. But the one thing both of them agreed upon when they told me their versions, and I wasn't with them, was that O'Keefe was never fired, that he was benched, and that he did violate the NDA. And that's what they went after him for. And this was one.
Right. So, they tell James he can't work. And then when he says, I'm going to do my own thing, they say, we're suing you now to stop you from doing that. Well, so that's evil.
I'm with you on that. But what they had said, both of them said, well, it was more about the violation of the NDA and going out there. Now,
it's his NDA.
Well, but there's still a 501.
Yeah, I don't care.
I hear you. But lawyers are weird people, right? Lawyers look at things differently than we do.
Anybody at Veritas who is in agreement with what they're doing to James is an evil, despicable piece of garbage.
But Tim, I'm not arguing with you on that. I'm saying lawyers are lawyers.
Lawyers. The board hired lawyers to do this for them.
Sure.
James starts Project Veritas. He runs it, and everyone's behind him. Then they come and subvert him, benching him, whatever you want to call it, shutting down his ability to do his job. So what does he do? I'll start another company. Now they're suing him? The only intention, perceivably, is to stop James O'Keefe from doing his work.
Look, I'll play a devil's...
And look at what they're doing right now with Tucker. There's literally no reason to take his show off the air and then tell him he can't post Twitter videos.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is, because having been through dumb lawsuits on both sides as plaintiff and defendant in business, once you involve attorneys, things snowball out of control. So... you can't deny that Veritas is inextricably linked to O'Keefe, right? It's his brand. He's the brand. They're one and the same. The minute lawyers got involved, this thing was going sideways. Same with Tucker. Because...
in the exact same way?
Well, because, look, they want to bill. And they know both organizations have deep pockets.
For what reason would you suspend someone and prohibit them from doing work?
Non-competes are enforced every day. I don't tend to agree with them how enforceable they are as a matter of law, but that's just what lawyers do because they want to rack up as many billable hours as they can. Look, I think the whole
you can't pass this off on lawyers. I reject that.
But how? If you're the board of a 501 and your law firm turns around and says you
Project
must go in this
Veritas
direction,
could have said, let's just let James do his thing.
Well, here's where I'm going to agree with you on that. I think the entire thing was the most ham-fisted, moronic PR exercise I've ever seen.
And Fox News all the same. If they don't want Tucker around, they just say, go do your thing.
Well, they should have told Tucker to go do his thing because Tucker's got a bit of a different situation there because he really, number one, different rules apply, right? I mean, one of the things to Veritas, whether it's valid or not, is that there was finances were mishandled. Now, I've spoken to some of their very big donors, and those big donors said, we don't care if O'Keefe flew on a solid gold Gulfstream 6. We didn't donate X dollars to nickel and dime him. We donated for results. He got us results. We don't care how he spent the money. If we gave him $5 million and he spent all but a penny on himself and got the job done, we're happy.
So James made the mistake of bringing on corrupt, envious scumbags to his board who have destroyed Project Veritas.
Look, I think the brand, right? The brand is him. But I think when you
and now they're trying to stop him from even doing more work.
Look,
these are evil people.
The lesson is this. I mean, you know this. You run a successful business, right? I've got partners. We're a small fund, but we do pretty well. Never bring adversaries onto a board of directors. It's the dumbest thing people do.
Also,
especially when you want to be a proprietary entity. There's this weird sense of nobility where people, and look, I'm going to say it here, right? No, I don't make any apologies for having moved on from Trump to DeSantis. Trump's personnel picks bear this out. If Trump had better personnel acumen, he'd be a very successful second-term president. This happens everywhere. So it's not unique to Veritas. Fox is a different animal because Tucker didn't pick the board. But James should have picked more wisely. But then again, he's a personality. He's not a business guy.
Yeah, he should not have started a nonprofit.
That's where I'm at.
Well, that too. The rules are
it's
far
tough
more.
to say because
He explained this.
It did create
how it started was that he wanted to do some work. He needed to raise money. He wasn't thinking of it as a commercial venture. So he said, how do I raise money? Well, if you got to be a 501c3. So, okay, so I'll file for that. He was a young guy.
Sure.
For me, I've had other LLCs and other S corps and whatever, so I'm like, this is the structure that we use. And there are even arguments to be made for C corps over S corps for a variety of reasons.
That's right.
But going the nonprofit route put him in a particularly vulnerable position for the thing that he built. And then these evil people, these brain slug people come in and destroyed Project Veritas. For what purpose other than because they're envious and evil people? End of story. James O'Keefe founded it. He's the leader of it. He's the one in charge. And if the donors are happy and the work was getting done, the only reason to interfere was because they were jealous, evil, or trying to destroy Veritas intentionally.
I don't think they were trying to destroy it, but I do think but they had no reason to destroy it because the money was coming in and the exposés were strong. I just think
why file a lawsuit?
Because I think people have power trips. And so they have power trips through tunnel vision, and they become crusaders, and they don't realize the collateral damage that's occurring when they become crusaders. I don't think it was a proactive, a career assassination of him. It turned into that. I just think a bunch of people said, well, we've got to do this. We're the board of directors. We're the austere board, and we don't care who the personality is. And in the real world, that's just moronic. That's not the way things work. And it snowballed out of control. But look, it bit them in the butt at the end of the day. The organization's never going to be the same. I get the emails. I don't look at them the same way.
I'm with you. I don't look at them the same way anymore.
Yeah,
Nobody does. But it's not just that. So is the argument then that these are the stupidest people on the planet? Because I don't buy it. Filing a lawsuit against James O'Keefe was basically publicly declaring you are shutting Veritas down.
Yeah, but the play devil's advocate on that, if in the bylaw, I didn't see him, but the way it was explained to me, in a 501, if you don't follow the rules, you could be prosecuted criminally. And so if lawyers step in, if you're a board member and you're one of the board members that was pro O'Keefe, now you've got a law firm sitting in front of you and a good one saying, look, guys, we wouldn't have advised you to go down this road, but you did. And if you don't do A, B, and C now,
bullshit.
And there is something, well, but here's my point. Once an attorney tells you that and says to you, you might be personally liable if you don't do these things that we're recommending, how many people are going to go out there and say, okay,
Bullshit.
I'll take the personal liability?
Because the actual real alternative is to say, make it above board, which would mean they go to James O'Keefe and say,
I agree with 100%.
formal termination, and we're clean. Have a nice day.
Tim, I'm gonna
or
go-
when James O'Keefe came out and said he was terminated, all they have to do is say, agreed.
Or
the idea that they're like, oh no, we're going to be prosecuted because James is violating his NDA.
Back up. Go one. I agree with you 100% here. What they should have done was call the attorneys in before they ever took action.
Yeah.
Sat O'Keefe at a table in a closed door room like this and said, hey guys, to the attorneys, hypothetically, if this were the situation with an executive here and we wanted to maintain the status quo and still be compliant, how could we go about that? And everybody could have shook hands and walked out of that room as friends.
Yeah,
That's where they screwed it up.
That's what makes me think it was an emotional response that they just did it to him in public.
I think it was the way it was done.
Yeah, evil.
I've disagreed with.
Greedy.
I played devil's advocate because I've sat on boards, but the way it was done in terms of a PR exercise was devastating to the organization.
Unless it was on purpose.
I don't think it was. Like I said, I've spoken to both sides. Even the pro O'Keefe faction on the board didn't feel it was done on purpose. They felt like you, that it was a moronically horrible execution, but they didn't feel there was malice in it.
How is there anything other than a pro O'Keefe faction to what he started?
People get nervous if they think they're going to be personally sued or potentially could be prosecuted. They tend
resign.
to change their perspective.
You resign.
It doesn't matter. You already knew about it. The minute you became aware of the situation, your resignation doesn't insulate you. That's the problem.
So look.
If you don't blow the whistle, they can go retroactively back. It may be nothing. All I'm saying is, from playing devil's advocate, if you're an individual, look, if you're a board member of a bank, you find out there's extortion, you don't report it. You can't just quit and throw your hands up.
The fact that they published a letter which actually said several people who signed it didn't actually experience any of this, that had ridiculous stories like James stole a sandwich from a pregnant woman, just shows, in my opinion, malintent.
Well, those were petty examples too. I mean, when I read that letter,
there were no real examplos.
I called a couple of board members. I go, "Why would you ever publish this letter? This is moronic." I said, "This tells people nothing. It makes you guys look horrible." Look, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, from a devil's advocate standpoint, I can understand why some people, not everybody has fortitude. They just don't. A lot of people are weak.
There's no devil's advocate. There's no justification. None of that adds up. The amount of hoops you have to jump through to make it make sense why they would do this to James is absurd. The simple solution is either greedy, envious people were angry with James O'Keefe and wanted to hurt him in some way, or they were intentionally destroying Project Veritas.
You know what I think it also was? O'Keefe's, he's a brilliant guy in the way he goes about things. And sometimes with genius comes a bit of an oddball personality. I think he ruffled some board feathers because he wasn't warm and fuzzy. People started to get offended, and maybe they wanted to check him. I don't think anybody ever wanted it to spiral out of control like this.
Yeah, they did. They wanted to check him.
What's the lowest level of hell reserved for?
Traitors.
Yeah. Betrayers and mutineers.
And if you get on Twitter, that's spelled Traders.
So when you are brought into an organization founded by someone who has done the hard work and sacrificed and risked everything for it, and then you decide you're better than them and should destroy everything they built, I just consider you being worthy of the lowest level, the lowest.
Look, and also don't put lawyers and finance people on your boards.
But he must have, when they founded Project Veritas, he had to have two others on the board with him, even from the inception point. So I don't know if they were names.
I don't know if they were there.
So they may be gone.
The board seemed pretty new. One guy on the board who was pro O'Keefe is a business guy out of Florida that I know real well, real nice guy. The other was an old friend of his who wound up being adversarial with him. So it was weird. It was weird. The whole thing was very, very weird.
Robert Barnes, I was listening to him and Viva Frey talking about it a couple days ago, and he was saying, Robert Barnes was saying that Veritas wants to sue O'Keefe to make sure that all the people that were donating to Veritas that are now donating to OMG, that they get that money now. But he's saying that O'Keefe brought that money to Veritas in the first place.
Yeah, that's not accurate. Robert's a good guy, but his takes have been a little off because you can't tell a donor. The one group that's impervious to any of this are the donors. They can take their dollars wherever they want.
But they did literally sue him to stop him from communicating with Veritas donors.
Yeah, but that didn't work. The donors, I was made privy, and I probably shouldn't have been to some donor emails, some of the large ones, and those donors were pretty adamant. We're going with him.
Yeah, you can donate.
We're going with it's our money. We don't really care what you do. We have more money than you do.
Outside of that, back to what we're seeing with Tucker Carlson, I do think, whether intentional or not, we are seeing very damaging efforts made that are, with an upcoming election, trying to silence two powerful voices.
This is what I heard.
Anti-establishment voices.
Now, maybe you guys can confirm or deny this. I don't know. But that Rupert Murdoch's girlfriend, I think it was Rupert Murdoch's girlfriend, said that she told Rupert that she thought Tucker was a prophet. And Tucker didn't like that because he felt that as, or not, Rupert didn't like that because it was a threat to his ego.
I was told that story by a former, very senior Fox executive.
Okay. I've heard it all over the place.
So I will tell you that the person that told me this was very close to Roger Ailes, and they are, in terms of a source on this type of thing, as good as it gets. You know, the other thing with Tucker could just be profit. I mean, the guy is powerful. He's got reach. He's going to be successful wherever he goes. The guy could stand outside, put up a video camera and stream it. He's going to get 80 million views. He's taking revenue from Fox.
And the claim that he breached his contract because he posted a video on Twitter is
It's dumb. It's stupid.
So they got him on
really
golden
stupid.
handcuffs at the moment. They benched him. They kept him on contract, and they're like, now you can't do anything that would compete with what you used to do. But that means you can't make an internet video. I mean, that's
insane.
How far does this?
The other problem,
How do you define compete with what he used to do? This is one thing that you're seeing left-wing commentators who want to dunk on him say, oh, the production value isn't very good. This looks nothing like he looked when he was on cable news. I mean, well, he's still getting a lot of views, right? And maybe there's an argument to be made there too, that the fact that there isn't the same level of production quality means it is not a competitive product, right? He's just talking. I don't know how you could have a contract that says like you're not allowed to voice any of your opinions on the internet. You'd think that he would have seen that, or his lawyers would have seen that if they tried putting it in there and said no.
You know, I think though, being more on the private equity side of the world now, I think this one is strictly about dollars. Look, they know that whenever if Tucker decides to launch a nightly show in his old time slot, he is pulling tens of millions in revenue monthly from Fox. They know this. So what they're doing is what big companies do. They try to scare you with litigation because they have deep pockets. The problem for Fox is so does Tucker. It's a guy worth 9 figures, a guy who could lay out 8 figures in legal and not feel the hit. He's going to make it back. He could generate that revenue now. Fox has a real fight on their hands.
80 million views on Twitter. Tucker could probably reasonably charge $500,000 per advertisement.
That's what I said the other day. You and I are like, somebody said, what do you think he could get for ads or live reads? I said, minimum $500,000.
For a nightly show?
Oh, I think it's Tucker did a nightly.
In general, if we were getting 85 million hits per video, I would be going to. I would actually probably charge $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, he's only done one,
and that's
video
low.
So far.
That's actually low.
If you're getting 80 million views, you should have 100 million a year net rolling in without worrying about it when you get out of bed in the morning.
To be fair, that was his first episode.
And Elon retweeted it.
And so it's going to get a ton of play. I'd imagine he lands around 7 million per episode.
Oh, it's 7 million per episode that you're still pulling. You're still going to, if he's doing 7 million, he's doubling his Fox show.
But after his 7 million,
he should get $500,000 for 7 million.
That's my point.
On Twitter.
He got 243,000 followers today on Twitter.
Wow.
And that's up from 40,000 yesterday. So he had 18,000 on Monday, 40,000 yesterday, 240,000 today and counting. Yeah, man,
so that's 10 million a month, right? So it's $500,000 a day, but that's 10 million a month. You do one hit, right? One ad a day per show.
Tucker's going to wake up at 2 p.m.
You wake up at 2 p.m. Do that. You got $500,000 a day coming in. His producer, 5 days a week.
His producer's going to be like, here's a bunch of the stories we've gone through. He's going to read through the news. They're going to work on the script for 40 minutes. Then he's going to lay out his argument for 10 minutes, and he's going to go back to bed.
No, he's going to go
20 hours
sleep in his pool of money that he has.
Well, that's it.
And actually, I don't want to go back to bed. I'm going to swim.
Yeah. And to your point, if the guy does $500,000 per pop, he's got 120 million a year rolling in. They weren't spending 20 million a year to produce his show.
No.
Absent his salary, his production value can exceed Fox.
Let's pull up this next story.
That's a very good point.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a very, very good week. It's been a very good past couple of months. I hope you're all very happy. As Bud Light collapses, Modelo becomes number one, Target stock is crumbling, and all of those who embrace wokeness in these big corporations are seeing the stock take a big hit. We now have CNN CEO Chris Licht out after Trump town hall. He's gone. They can't even host the front runner for the GOP. The corporate press is dead. Tucker Carlson gets 80 million views on Twitter. Nothing is stopping the cultural shift, the victories, or the strengthening, what we're doing.
Have any popular, and I use that word lightly, have any of the popular hosts from CNN tried to launch any kind of web show?
No, but they would take off if they did. If Don Lemon started his own web show, he'd be like making $10 million a month.
You're completely wrong.
You really think so? I thought you were being sarcastic. You actually think that Don Lemon?
Chris Cuomo, if he started his own?
Chris Cuomo is on what, News Nation?
News Nation.
Getting 40,000 hits.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Wild.
Yeah.
Because this is the reality.
Maybe it's too late. Like if
No,
he
they're
just
fake
left
personalities. They are fake personalities
just gonna
propped
say
up
that.
that
That's a good
no
point.
one actually watches. Tucker
AstroTurf.
is an actual thought leader with tons of fans and followers.
That's right. I did Don Lemon show once in 2011 or 12, maybe. I'm sorry, like 13 or 14. It was on BLM riots, and we got into somewhat of an intellectual debate about. My point was, he said, well, let's bring it down. He said, I said, well, look, BLM is a disjointed organization, has no leadership. That's why you've got some maniacs going out there burning buildings down. He says, well, who would be a leader? I said, well, I don't know, Oprah. This woman is a businesswoman. She knows. And I got into how this woman created a $2 billion empire from nothing. And Lemon was like a deer in the headlights. He's just a dim bulb. He's a dumb guy. He's not an intelligent guy. He could never, to Tim's point, he could never pull off what Tucker pulled off.
Anderson Cooper. He'd be making some good money if he walked.
I don't think so. I think he'd make
More so than Don, but-
than the other people,
Yeah.
probably, but nowhere near Tucker territory, right?
No, not-
And
not
it
the
depends on how you're
moment.
defining good money. I mean, I guess I couldn't even really put an estimate on it.
Yeah.
I look. Anderson Cooper is a famous guy. He can make money. Don Lemon is laughably bad. However, how many people have you ever met where they're like, "Yo, did you catch Cooper 360 last night?"
Right.
Yeah. Did you hear what he had to say? Well, we were.
Tucker Carlson has fans and followers. Anderson Cooper does not. He has a little bit. He is a celebrity. But most people just know who he is because of the ads and the billboards. Whereas the people who know Tucker know him for his thoughts and his monologues, his ideas.
He has,
Exactly.
he has dedicated followers too. Cooper and Lemon and Chris Cuomo as well. They were background fodder, right? People watched
Airport
CNN.
news.
Yeah, they watched CNN. They were on in the background.
Yeah.
They knew them. They were comfortable. The only place I could see an Anderson Cooper ending up, he'd be like one of those Discovery ID investigative guys, or like Nat Geo reports. They'd give him a show. They'd give him a few million bucks a year.
Yeah, he'd get a good
name.
send off from the CIA for all of his years of
For all
hard
of his
work.
years of hard work.
That's a joke. Calm down. Maybe
He and Ken Delaney and an NBA.
Well, and so with
Lorenz.
Tucker Carlson, when he was let go from Fox, we spent so much time speculating over what story he broke that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because Tucker was subversive and he actually reported on things that people in power didn't want the American people to know about. That's how you know he was a good reporter. That's how you know he was genuinely good at his job rather than just being popular, because we were having conversations about the stories he broke and the things he talked about that no one else was willing to touch. And we couldn't even narrow down which one it was that got him fired because there was so much. When Don Lemon got pushed out of CNN, no one was wondering, oh yeah, which story do you think, which subversive story that Don Lemon broke do you think was the reason those powerful people pushed him out?
We were actually arguing what unstable outburst led
Yes.
to his
That's
removal.
true.
Is that why he got?
Yes, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Don Lemon?
When he snapped on Vivek, reportedly, that's
Whatever
why they got him.
ethnicity he is.
Yeah.
That's what he said, right?
Oh,
That's what he
yeah.
said to him. He said, whatever ethnicity you are. What?
Wow.
What? He's not the brightest bulb in the box, but I'll actually disagree. I'll agree with you and disagree with you on Tucker. People forget the intangible with Tucker. Guy's been around D.C. a long time. He belongs to all the right private clubs. He knows where a lot of bodies are buried, metaphorically, a lot. I think it's as much about the stories he hasn't yet done.
That's a very
as
good
much
point.
as the stories he did and the stories they didn't want done.
Dude, that's a really good point. I didn't even consider that. And they know he's shown them over the past several years. Like, yeah, he's telling those kinds of stories, man.
He's like got Epstein's client list, and he's just like,
That's what I'm saying.
He's like, I've been waiting for a slow news day. He's
Yeah,
like,
he's
now
got
that
a-
people are only talking about the wildfire, the
He's got a
smog.
lot.
I mean, he's like,
You made a
it's like-
statement earlier when you were preempting your ideas that when Fox let Tucker go, but I think technically they didn't let him go. They have him on a golden handcuff on contract still.
interesting.
They do.
So I love Tucker and what he's done and what he represents, but I also look at this as cut and dry. Fox owns him. They're going to sue him, get a ton of money for breach of contract, and he's going to have to stop making content until his contract
I'm going to
expires.
disagree with you on that.
blackballed on this
think,
one.
I think he's got the kind of dollars liquid that he's just going to turn around and say, hell with you guys. And he's going to throw a ton of money at attorneys. He's going to fight them. He's going to jam them up. One thing Fox doesn't want to do, and it's not unique to Fox, it's every large corporation. They don't want to peel back onions in Discovery. That's the last thing they want to do, because look, you got to remember, when you produce Discovery, of things pertinent to a lawsuit, you're pretty much self-policed, right? You produce what you and your attorneys feel is pertinent to discovery. Your attorney as officer of the court is trusted that you're producing what you're supposed to produce. Well, Tucker knows a lot more about the inner machinations of Fox than Dominion does. The last thing Fox wants is for Tucker in discovery to compel discovery on some things that should have been produced to Dominion but weren't, and have Dominion reopen another matter.
Oh, wow. So you think that Tucker will threaten to take it to court and then they'll drop the case?
I think he'll ignore them.
He'll ignore them. He'll just hire attorneys.
I don't think he'll even hire an attorney.
I think he has to, right? Because if they sue him, he's going to have to respond to the complaint.
So far, send him a letter saying you're in breach.
Right.
He can do nothing.
If they file it, right, he could do nothing. If they file a complaint, he's going to have to answer in the 20 plus 10 or 30 days, whatever.
I imagine what they'll do is they'll send the lawsuit with a letter of intent to file claims or whatever to engage.
Yeah, they'll send a sample complaint, like a mock complaint.
Then
that's what they do. Not yet filed. And here's what we're going to do if you don't stop. And
then he hires a lawyer, or he might even still just ignore it and say, file it in court. Because
he just represents himself in court.
No, because they're not gonna. Because the moment they do, he can say, okay, I agree. Discovery time, baby. Because it's not his computer's being opened up, it's theirs.
Oh, it's theirs. Look, they're gonna ask him for discovery, but his is real limited in scope, right? If they're gonna be ambiguous about why they let him go, or they severed ties, or they benched him, he can turn around and play dumb. Say, I have no idea. Let's open everything.
Yep.
That's the last thing they want to do. Do you think they want, I mean, the head of PR at Fox has a reputation for being a notoriously evil woman. Do you think they, I don't know what to say her name because I don't.
I mean, she's in PR, right? There's a reason you get good at convincing people that someone with a bad reputation has a good one. It's
the
'cause
last
they have a bad reputation.
thing they want are her texts and emails to be produced in Discovery, especially the internal stuff. Ooh. So it would be pretty brutal. I think he's got them. He's got them in a rough spot.
So would they release him from his contract then, or they just let it?
I mean, it depends on how the attorneys. Look, listen. He's going to claim they owe him money. They're going to claim he owes them money. And at the end of the day,
he's going to win.
Or they might just wash it out. He'll say, "Just leave me alone and let me go." And they'll say, "We're not going to give you a dime," and everybody walks away.
Maybe. I think it's more likely that he wins something.
He probably will.
Yeah, because
everybody else has. Fox, right?
This golden handcuffs thing is going to be viewed very negatively, in my opinion, if it does ever go to court. And they know that Tucker was contracted to produce a show, to host a show. They then decided he will not do that. So now they either let him go or they pay up. And so he's saying, if we have an agreement where it's like, I'll pay you X in exchange for you to come on the show, and then I tell you, you can never come on again, and then you say, well, then I'm going to leave. I say, no, you can't do that either. Like, I can't do that. Like, that's ridiculous. The agreement is that you are hosting the show. Now, they may have something in these contracts because they're robust contracts, but I really doubt that there's going to be a judge who's like, well, no, Tucker, you're not allowed to work right now. It's more likely going to be like, this makes no sense. There should be a settlement for separation.
Right.
In which case, Tucker will likely say, you've got to pay me X. So I've been in these media contracts before. And people have asked me like, oh, what if, you leave? Or like, what if they don't want you around? I'm like, they got to pay out the remainder of the contract. That's the purpose of the contract. It guarantees I get X dollars for this time period. If at any point they want to break that, they got to pay me out. I assume what they're trying to do is say, we didn't actually fire Tucker. They did. And Tucker would argue, they fired me in breach of the contract, so they have to pay me out and I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to if he chose to leave, then they wouldn't pay him out.
And then they may actually say you're on the hook for...
Yeah, they want to claw back some of the income.
We paid you for 3 years.
Right.
And if you leave, they might say he owes us the remainder of those years.
One of the things that leads me to believe, I agree with Tim and think that Fox, the last thing they want is to go to litigation, is they're not slamming him in the press. They haven't leaked anything on him. They haven't dropped nasty releases on him. They're being really tepid in the way they approach him. They're tiptoeing around him. Part of that's obviously they don't want to lose the remaining viewers of his that they've kept, but it's an unusual way to go about it when you go, he's a grizzly, right? You typically take a kill shot when you go bear hunting like that.
Yes.
And they're not doing that.
If he had violated the contract, that would have been the first sentence out of their mouths.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, my friends, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, become a member, and you will get access to our uncensored members-only after show, and you can even call in. Sign up at the $25 per month level, or if you've been a member for at least 6 months, you can submit questions and be one of our callers. For now, we will read your Super Chats. Bellyflop says, Reagan legalized ads for kids. Eventually, 90s kids rule adult suck era trained millennials into low quality rebels. Franchised activism. Now beliefs are mostly based on what people are against.
Yeah, I remember that as a kid in the 90s, this whole like, hate your parents, man. Parents are dorky. They don't know. But my parents were super cool. And I was like, this is all weird to me.
It's
man.
propaganda.
Love your parents, I guess, because love people that are good to you.
Do you remember on The Simpsons, buy me Bone Storm or go to hell?
No.
And it's like, go tell your parents.
Yeah. S.A. Federale says, Tim, your monologues deserve 70 million views. I seriously think you and others are being throttled. I remember writing B-school essays about how little impact net neutrality would have and wanted to smack myself. Ajit Pai was a sly bad guy. Well, if you like the videos I produce, share them. But yeah, we're all being throttled. However, I do periodically get messages from people and they're like, oh, your video was suggested to me. And I recently got hit up by a high profile individual who said that my videos were being suggested to him. So I'm like, oh, that's good news, right?
I don't see any of your stuff. I don't get them suggested. I rarely see you in my feed.
That's believable.
Every time I ever see a clip from the show, I click, not interested. Sometimes if I'm feeling really spicy, I'll hit report.
I'm just going to start putting community notes on them for the hell of it now.
I was like, I got to report this one. We saw it was under Tim's.
No, I don't see your stuff. So you're definitely being
Twitter or
throttled
YouTube?
on Twitter. I don't ever see anything you promote. Rarely. I would say out of 20 tweets of yours, I may see 1 or 2 on Twitter in my feed.
I do get your stuff or our stuff, I guess, recommended to me
On Twitter?
We're gonna start putting all of our shows on Twitter, like many other people are starting to do now. I think the issue is Tucker kind of hit it out of the ballpark, and then we're all jealous. And I was watching that and I was looking at it and I was like, what? I want 80 million views. Yeah. I want to be on Twitter.
Yeah.
Matt Walsh, too.
I want 80 million views to be on Twitter also.
Yeah, come on.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Why don't I get that? Why don't I get it?
So I was thinking, actually, I think it's reasonable to assume that if I were to put up my 20-minute Timcast news segments, probably get a couple 100,000 hits per video.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot more virality, a lot more shares. I imagine the retention would be slightly lower.
Yeah.
But there is still a path to monetization in that if we're selling Cast Brew Coffee in these videos and we're getting 100,000, hits on each of these clips and we convince 10 people to buy a bag, it is worth posting them on Twitter.
Also, you have Twitter subscriptions. Are you doing Twitter subscriptions? That's a lucrative model that I've signed up for.
I've seen them. They've started. Yeah.
YouTube also has a very interesting infrastructure for keeping people watching. I mean, the way Twitter functions is you're constantly scrolling through. It incentivizes you to look at something very briefly, then keep scrolling, look at something briefly. So, I mean, keeping someone invested for a 10 to 20 to 30 to an hour long even video, I think could very well require like a restructuring of the interface and the way it looks.
Yeah, you want not as many, but you want all the buttons you need on the full screen model of the UI, that's for sure. So like about what Twitter needs right now is a skip ahead 15-second, rewind 15-second button on there, but other than that, it's looking svelte.
Well, just like, when you're on YouTube and you scroll, you only see that video and the comments on that video, and then off to the side, there's other recommendations. Like on Twitter, you just always have the option to scroll to something else.
All right, what do we got? I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says most of the fires in Canada have been arson. Is that true? Remember when there were those far leftists that were starting fires? There was like a crazy guy who was like throwing firebombs into the brush.
Yeah.
And then the media was like, it's not happening. Like there's a video of a guy.
What are you talking about? They're mostly peaceful. This is.
Yeah. Mark Hesseltine says, Orange Sky bad. I mean, literally, yes. It's not good.
True. I guess we don't
very
want
bad.
that.
What we got here? John Sarah Sanguinis. Is that what it is? Sarah Sanguinis? This is only news because on the East Coast, yearly thing on the West Coast, Bubkiss. Well, yes, it's because half of the U.S. population is in Eastern time. And then everyone else is spread out throughout the various deserts and cornfields. This is the truth. All right.
Those deserts and cornfields are pretty awesome, especially the cornfields.
Cornfields are based.
Yeah, man.
Cornfields are super based.
Watching corn from above when the wind's whipping it around is cool. It looks like silk.
I will say though, not a fan of the whole let's make everything out of corn thing. Like every single thing we make, there's some guy trying to figure out how we can make it of corn instead of what
Because
it's
of corn
supposed to be made
subsidies.
of. No, I know, but it's just very bizarre.
Because you're like, hey, normally it would cost me $100 to buy this raw material, and corn would cost $200. But they've paid for the corn, so it's free. So I'd rather just try and figure out how to make corn glass. We're gonna make cars out of corn.
We're 50 years from your family being made of corn.
Corn Hub.
Everyone.
I'm Corn Hub. I've been looking to make that joke for like 48 hours, and I'm gonna make it again when it's better.
Oh, that was good.
Corn Hub.
Corn Hub. Well, you see,
That was corny, dude.
The corn emoji is what they say for porn when they're trying to avoid censors and stuff on different platforms.
Didn't someone make Corn Hub and it was like a bunch of corn videos?
I'm looking it up. I don't want to click.
That sounds like Chicken City, dude. It's just like a corn version of Chicken City.
A live stream of a
You're just
cornfield.
watching corn
A
grow.
bunch of videos of just different cornfields and people harvesting corn, talking about corn.
Oh my gosh.
Team Zeppelin says, Seamus, my 64-year-old wife thinks you're attractive. Should I start thinking AI?
What do you mean?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Well, that's very sweet of your wife.
Start thinking AI. Is that what he said?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like putting your face on his body.
Please don't.
I think we're really delving too deep into this.
Yeah, I don't think that's what he was saying.
I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Dobler says global warming is a religious belief.
Mm-hmm.
The cherry harvest in Washington state will be 2 weeks delayed this year, the longest delay in history because the spring was too cold. Farmers know the truth.
Yeah, man, just look up on the internet, are we still in an ice age? If you want to search it for yourself, yes, we are. We are coming out of an ice age. We're in an interglacial period right now. That's why it's warming up. The ice is melting on purpose because we're leaving the ice age.
Or have you considered that inventing the internal combustion engine was man's original sin?
It was. I just want to say Obama set back interglacial relations for years.
know.
Decades. Decades.
Did he even know he was doing it?
He didn't even know he was
Probably.
doing it. He
I
didn't
assume
know
he
he
did.
was doing it.
Tom Kavanagh says, I'd love to try some cast brew coffee, but my order got lost. DHL says they delivered it. They didn't. They direct me to you guys. You guys directed me to DHL. End result, no coffee for me. I'm sorry to hear it, man. The only thing I can really say is if DHL says they delivered it, but they didn't, then it really is on DHL. But let me write down that order number and see what we can do. The other thing is, like, we have a lot of people who email us with, well, we'll look into it.
That was
I'm writing
nice
down your
super
number.
chat because you could have used that money to buy another order, but instead you brought it to our attention. That was very cool.
Let me write this down here. Cast brew. But so the challenge for us is if we take a package of coffee, we give it to the shipping guy, and they like say, "Oh, we got it," and then they report it's been delivered. We've already handed it off. It's gone shipping. So like we don't have it. Like we don't like. There's no circumstance in which we get an order for coffee and then we like chuck it into a waste bin and just claim that it went out.
Yeah.
Like all the coffee gets loaded up into a thing, sent out to shipping, and then I don't know whatever they do with it. But we'll look into it. I wrote your order number down. Sorry to hear it, buddy. We'll see what we can do. Maybe we'll just send you out a bag. We'll have to look into what the order was and everything. Tom Forsyth says a butterfly flapping its wings can cause a hurricane on the other side of the world. I propose a mission to find and kill that butterfly.
Yeah, I think that's also like either pro or anti-butterfly propaganda. I don't know that one butterfly.
That's
could do
chaos theory.
Yeah.
I like it.
Pinochet's helicopter tour says that church is 5 minutes away from me was obliterated.
Whoa.
I just like that. I like that username.
Yeah.
No. What is this? Tarzan Jungle Kung Fu says bootleg fire in Oregon was bad, almost half-mile acres. The holiday farm fire was near me. Everything looked like Blade Runner 2045, deep red orange. Air quality so bad, most places shut down. Stay safe. Yeah, my sinuses have been bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I drank a
brutal.
huge amount of water.
You know,
earlier.
mine usually are bad, but they've been great lately. I think things are finally turning around for me.
What
It's
could
like-
possibly go wrong?
Yeah, you guys are having a sinus issue. Maybe I was just built for this weird smoky weather.
Built different, huh?
That's tough.
should
That's
be a fireman.
It's a difficult thing to figure out.
It's very cleansing. This might be like a new trend, like a new spa trend.
It's like
Yeah.
wildfire smoke
Go
rooms.
into
yeah.
go into an unventilated room full of smoke.
Toxic smoke room therapy.
Have you done rape? They shoot the tobacco smoke up into the nose and
No.
then blow it out.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely had tobacco smoke go up my nose, but I've never.
That's intentional.
Look, I live in South Florida. You can find bored housewives to pay $500 a pop to stand in a room of toxic smoke if you market it properly. Trust me.
All right. Bobcat says, you're
for my
going straight
aura.
to space lasers. Tim, you need to look up the World War II bat bomb. It did more damage in Japan than the A-bomb. I read about that. It's like, was it literally bats? Like they
Yeah.
released a whole bunch of bats.
Yeah, and the bats had I think they had like incendiary, like little pieces of flame on them of some kind, like some little like lit like fuse, I guess. And they flew around and landed in all the wood
You looked it
buildings.
up?
It's
Ian?
true. The bomb
Yeah.
consisted of a bomb-shaped casing with over 1,000 compartments, each containing a hibernating Mexican free-tailed bat
Yep.
with a small timed incendiary bomb attached
Correct. Yep.
That is some Looney Tunes stuff right there.
Wow.
Man. That is ridiculous.
Wile E. Coyote level warfare.
Exactly. They literally packed bats into a bomb.
Hey, they sent balloons at us, so we had to get them back somehow. You know?
did.
Yeah,
send
and those
balloons.
balloons were flying for a while too.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's like it actually did a lot of damage because they just lit everything on fire. Because Japan at that point was all made out of like wood and paper, essentially.
So I guess if your enemy's civilization is built out of wood and paper, you could just send flaming bats at them. I don't think they're using this anymore, though.
I hope not.
I mean, firstly, Peter, you could like. This is how backwards things are. You could bomb civilians with something like this, and then PETA would be upset about the bats.
Yeah, I was feeling
"Hold
that.
on."
Isn't it easier to just drop a regular bomb?
You would imagine.
Sounds time consuming to insert the little device on all
They
the
were going for
bats. Like,
collateral.
Matt Kelly
Well,
says,
first you have to sing a lullaby to the bats so they fall
put 'em to
asleep, and you
sleep.
put them in there, or you get
Matt
attached.
Kelly says an all-woman firefighter crew lost control of a prescribed burn in Banff, Canada, causing a 70-acre forest fire. What are the odds?
Oof.
Is that what happened recently?
Banff,
Or was that
Canada?
Is that some time ago?
Yeah, that's up in the mountains.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but like
Alberta.
the point of having a fire department isn't so it can
Where's
put out
that?
fires. It's so you
Further
can
west.
make everyone feel
I think it's
special
out-
because they get to be a firefighter.
British Columbia, British Columbia.
Banff
right?
is like all
British
the way
Columbia.
west. It's not,
Yeah,
not
that's right.
east.
They were female for the most part.
Yeah.
50
A mostly female firefighting
female.
unit.
Villainous V says, Tim, have you heard about Italy making June Family Pride Month, celebrating families and protecting the kids? I did hear something on Twitter. Well, there you go. Doing something. Damage Controlling says, we'll boycott companies for targeting children, but won't delete the social media that actively rots your brain as they solicit and promote active child abusers. If you still have Instagram after today, you are the problem. I completely disagree. These are the social spaces where we are trying to win the culture war. If there were a bunch of creepos in the city center, you wouldn't be like, quick, everyone flee the city center. There's bad people there. You'd be like, quick, let's go to the city center and stop these creepos. So we want to be in these spaces to dominate the conversations and not let them get access to kids. However, as for Instagram, we should all demand Instagram do something and stop. You guys heard about this, right? They're actively promoting these algorithmic these hashtags for trafficking. That's crazy. Cam Girl Asuna says, Tim and company, please stop with this advanced weapons garbage. Your position is, we know about X, so they must have extra secret ultra weapons. We don't, and your position is stupid. You're better than that, except Ian, we love the ones. Yeah, but I think you're wrong. The U.S. would not declassify nuclear submarines without contingencies. That makes literally no sense. It doesn't mean that what they actually have are more powerful, but they're certainly different. So if they're coming out and they're saying, this is the inside of our nuclear submarine, they're either lying or they have something totally different.
And also,
They're not going to give the enemy access to information pertaining to how to subvert our weaponry. That
And
makes
not
no
only
sense.
that, we have a history of the military admitting that they disclose classified technologies when the next generation, or at least implying that they disclose classified
And what was it,
technology.
the SR-72 or
The SR-71.
71.
Well, first the U-2 spy plane, Lockheed Skunk Works, right? Then the SR-71, then the F-117 Stealth, the B-2. So they've always disclosed the classified technologies when the next generation is operational.
Those literally existed for decades before we knew they existed.
Yeah, like we said earlier, I think the stealth fighter, the F-117, went operational in the late 70s. We found out about it in the late 80s, early 90s. I think we first found out about that when we hit Noriega in 89 with those. And it was operational about 11, 12 years prior.
Yep.
I tend to say, like, what kind of weapons do we have? You know, I like to pose it as a question rather than be like, we definitely have these advanced weapons that I don't know anything about. Like, I'm not going to,
Yeah.
but I will question.
Triton54 says CO2 is an inert gas. We literally use it to put out fires. Yes. Well, all right.
That's badass.
Stevie Vivi says, don't forget Northrop Grumman publicly announced a plane that was not completed yet over a year ago and still has not flown yet. How many questions? The likelihood that the U.S. military has weapons that we don't know about is like 100%.
I hope they do. I don't want the bad guys, our enemies, to know all the stuff we have. I hope we have, multi-generational classified programs, either operational or in development.
CDE says you guys should sell chocolate-covered coffee beans. Tried some at a farmer's market, and it was surprisingly good. I don't even like coffee that much. Oh, they're incredible. Yes, we will work on that. The next thing that we have coming for Casper, obviously, is the coffees, the decaf, the new blends. We'll be launching the Seamus potato blend. I'm kidding. I don't know what it's going to be.
It's going to be some kind of blend.
We're also going to be
Go with
launching on the Casper.com. We're going to have various We're going to have a protein powder, I think, and an MCT. And
That's cool.
we're going to do a specialty MCT protein mix. Harder to make, but we'll have that, and it'll be in small batch because we have to actually like formulate.
You
The
know,
protein stuff's easy. It's like you get protein and then you put it in a thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like the MCT has to be like balanced.
what is absolutely delicious if you like coffee beans or chocolate covered coffee beans is coffee bean and an almond. 1 and 1. Just eat them at the same time. Taste them together.
Like a regular coffee bean.
Yeah, just straight coffee bean and an almond because it kind of cuts the bitterness. The almond does. Man, what a flavor.
We have grapes everywhere. I mentioned this yesterday.
Yeah.
Yo, in a few months, it's going to be bonkers. There's going to be tens of thousands of grapes just all over the place.
Oh, yeah, on the property you've got them?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wild grapes, frost grapes.
I was watching about how to make mead. I don't know if you can make mead out of
That's honey.
wine. Yeah, it's honey, and they were like raspberry mead or something. Some kind of
Yeah, the
berry
black
mead.
raspberries are starting to ripen. So
Pretty basic.
this morning I saw a black raspberry. I've been watching it. It's this big one. It finally turned black. And then I was like, yeah, but it's still too early. None of the other ones are ripe. And then when I came back a few hours later, it had fallen off. And so I'm like, oh, bummer. Lost it. But there were a couple others. Tried a few. They're amazing. And then we have wineberries coming in a month. It's really funny for people who don't live out in the rural areas. When we have people come from cities, they're like, "Did you plant all of these things?" And I'm like, "No, this is just literally what happens every year."
Right.
There's pawpaw, there's walnuts, there's apple trees, there's cherry trees. We got 2 black cherry trees. There's
wheat.
We have honeysuckle. We have wheat just randomly growing everywhere.
You can eat it.
Yeah, it's just food.
such a
Literally
city
comes
boy.
out of the ground.
Yeah. Look, I've got property in the Midwest. I won't even say where because in one spot the sorrel mushrooms grow. And they're ridiculously expensive.
Oh, wow.
And this property is on a river, and it just happens to be the right condition. And got a patch like this big, and they're
sell them?
abundant. Give them away.
You
wow.
grill them?
You can do pretty much anything with them. They're awesome.
Oh, wow. All right, what do we got? B. Walsh says the air pollution from the wildfires is just a giant orange wave showing support for Trump.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's an
that's-
omen.
You knew that was coming.
Finally got the red wave.
That's a psyop. Equate orange with bad.
Rush says JSOC is doing a command-wide 18-minute workout and 1.8-mile run to honor the suffrage of 18 years of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I can provide verification of this if you want. Not mandatory, but, quote, mandatory. You ever see those bits where they're like, do you think we should end women's suffrage? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're
They've
like, okay,
suffraged for
base.
long enough.
Yes,
Yeah.
suffrage. And then they make them sign a petition.
So much suffraging. that women
Why
have
don't
to go through every
Republicans just
day.
do that? Why don't Republicans just like introduce a bill saying like it's time to end women's suffrage?
People,
And then like the Democrats would be like, oh, that's so nice of them. Women shouldn't suffer. And it's like, yeah. Suffrage is suffering. Here, sign the paper.
Yes, sign paper.
Same thing.
We're giving you this one.
Shane Knox says here in Florida we have controlled burns regularly, no wildfires to speak of.
That's true. We do them in the Everglades. You see them from where I live. Because I live right almost on the ocean, a mile away. But the sugar fields, the cane fields, they burn them every day. Something's burning out there.
They just let it kind of turn to black ash and then re-mulch the fields and stuff?
Yep. And they really never spread out of control. It's true.
Sevi Rose says critical thinking isn't helping in the fight against misinformation. They're calling you stupid and it's not well veiled. That's right. Yep. Palm Pyro KJ says many separate videos of helicopters dropping fire in multiple places in Canada. We shouldn't dismiss questions that should be asked, especially when motives exist, just because it could be considered a conspiracy theory.
Yep, that's the video I was talking about when I saw the helicopter. It looked like it was shooting napalm down into the trees below. Maybe they were trying to do a controlled burn and burn a perimeter around
Yeah,
the fire.
they burn a fire line. They burn a fire line so that this fire that they can control, and they dig, and then that fire stops. Not that one, but the premise is to stop the spreading fire.
Yeah. It's crazy. We have wheat growing everywhere and it just dies and then turns brittle and dry and you gotta get rid of it.
That's kindling, yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's gonna go up one spark.
Yep. It is kind of funny how wheat like grows and then just dies. I think it's kind of hilarious. It lives for like a month or two.
Yeah.
Poor
Just
wheat,
gets tired of all
but
of
it's
it.
good food. Yeah, it just gets tired of it all.
Wheat is so
Babies,
exhausted with life.
What's the babies
point?
This.
What's the point?
Why are we still here? Just to suffer.
I don't want to be
Every night I feel my arm.
I don't want to be a weedy. Live in a box.
Monk in Training says regarding the Project Veritas board power trip, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter once said, man has the potential to see great lengths, but a small coin blinds his vision. Ah, very smart. Yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Good line.
James Wills says, Seamus, as one who is an expert at missing the boat, I beg you, do not let last night's sail out of the harbor.
What does that even mean? Oh, okay.
I think he's
I'm not
telling you to
entirely
marry
sure what that
Pearl.
means. Oh my goodness.
It was really entertaining to listen to you guys talk.
It was a fun conversation.
And then they stayed up here for like 2 hours afterwards. I left.
We did after the after show. We kept talking.
Yeah, you just left when
Good
we left,
conversation.
man.
Yeah.
You
You guys were sitting up here for like another 2 hours?
No, it was probably like an hour after the after show.
And then
Yeah,
2
about-
hours?
About an hour. I'll say it's an hour.
So about 2 hours.
like 2 out.
Oh well, I guess like after the all right. You guys, I guess say whatever you want.
I'll just keep saying it until you agree. Jacob Hawk says, if the whistleblower was a psyop, why wouldn't it be all over legacy media? I paid attention because they didn't cover it. Deep state runs deep. Are we talking about the alien whistleblower or the Biden whistleblower?
I don't
Yeah.
know anymore.
Do you remember
aliens.
that completely astroturfed Facebook whistleblower?
Oh,
Who we were
yeah.
expected to believe was real.
That's right. She's gone.
She was
whatever
so
happened to that?
obviously put up there. She's
yeah.
like, what needs to happen is the government needs more control here. It was something ridiculous like that.
Oh, here's a good one. Jerome Morrow says, Tim, please shout out arrested preacher Damian Atkins' Give, Send, Go campaign.
Yeah, so it's really.
Damian Atkins, huh? I am pulling that up. What is this? Is this the current one? Damian Atkins arrested after holding a sign with 7 biblical words on it at a Pride event. Yep. Yeah, if you guys Google search Damian, wait, this is Damon Atkins. Is it Damon?
Just Damon.
Probably Damon.
Yeah, just Damon Atkins. If you Google search that, you can find Damon, Damon Atkins. If you want to support, that's shocking. I mean, that they arrested that guy. We can't stand for that. This guy's got to win. He's got to sue. He's got to win as much as he can. Standing on a public sidewalk with a sign, and they arrested him.
That's nuts.
I mean, he's not with a group. I mean, there's some people there, but it's not like he's marching through the streets, obstructing anything, doing anything violent.
It's not arrestable.
I'm trying to find a picture of him. DuckDuckGo isn't showing it to me.
No,
Just
no,
search for his Give, Send, Go. It's got a picture.
Of course.
B2
What's
The Rock
wrong with
says,
me?
as a forester, the wildfire issue is far more nuanced than just climate change. There have been many policy changes in politics that have led us here. Completed my 20th pack test today to fight fire again this season.
Oh, that's
cool, man.
awesome.
Nice, man.
Paul Tascalo says, Tim, any plans to head to Las Vegas for the World Series of Poker this year or next year? If you love poker, playing a World Series of Poker event will make you feel like a football player in the Super Bowl. Hit me up for poker coaching. No. We perhaps will go to Vegas for like a big MMA fight if we organize something like that. We'll see. That's the only thing we really ever talked about.
Yeah, Tim taught me how to play poker, and I just destroyed him and everyone else at the poker table, and it was a beautiful experience.
Tim's easy to
It's the
beat.
opposite of what happened.
We went in there. I was like Rain Man, except for the part where he's good at things.
Well, so there were several,
Basically, how I've been described my whole life.
there were several hands where Seamus kept calling the bets and then would flip over ace king on a board where there's no ace king and like someone's got a straight.
That
or a
never
flush.
happened. No, you beat me once. No, actually,
several times.
no.
Yeah.
You
You're
actually
like, oh, I don't
did
have
beat me
anything,
once.
and you flip over ace king. I'm like, bro, there's no like, what are you betting on?
What are you
I'm like,
talking
I had
about?
the
That didn't
straight-
happen. I had an ace and I had an ace and queen, and I had a pair. I had a queen, and there was a queen on the board.
No, that was top pair. You had to say that was a good bet.
Yeah, but you
with an
beat
inside
me on
straight.
that. That's what I'm saying. I was,
was
I was
actually-
like, how could I have predicted that my ace queen was going to be beat by whatever you had? I was like, it could
you
happen.
literally could.
It
There's a straight on
literally
the
could
board.
happen, but I had a good hand.
Bro, 4, 5,
I had
6.
a good hand, and betting was the right choice.
No,
Because I literally beat you in the hand before that, and then you got all your money back.
See,
which
this
fair.
is okay, Seamus. This is sad. Okay, because you're literally explaining why you don't know what you're talking about.
That's
as you
also
say.
fair. Yeah, I have no idea.
So let
how
me
to play
explain to
poker.
everybody who might know what poker is. So it's actually kind of sad story for Seamus.
How can you say this?
Because I
it
had
was
7-3.
a good bet.
I had 7-3 suited, and I was like, I don't know. I think I was in the cutoff, and for the board, the flop comes with like queen 5-6, and so I'm like, oh, I have a gut shot. You know, I could get the straight.
But
and so
you-
Seamus does have a queen with top kicker, so that was good. But I raised you. And then the turn comes the 4, 5, 6 on the board, and I raised you on
But
that board.
I've seen you raise when you have bad hands. I've seen you raise when you know you have
Yes,
a bad hand. You're
Seamus.
like, I'm just going to keep raising because I'm Tim.
I can't give you poker lessons live on the show
Exactly,
right now.
yeah.
If I show you the bluff, I'm intentionally
Yeah.
making you think when I'm strong, I'm weak. When I'm weak, I'm strong. So when I completed the straight and then raised
get me,
you,
dude.
and you were like, well, I've got a queens, I must be good, and you gave me all your money.
It's true.
It was really funny because the guy on my left goes, 7-3, what are you doing in that hand? I was like, bro, I was bluffing, and then I hit the 5-6 and got the gut shot. So I
Oh,
took
those
it.
are the best. You can take like
Broke my-
all of someone's stack in those situations where you
Very
bluff.
disguised.
Well,
Yes,
what was
but-
funny,
but-
well, to be also like we were sitting at the poker table. I was like, I don't know if I want to play. And Tim's like, look, I'll buy you in the hand. And so he just
It's
got
my
his
money
money
anyway.
back. Yeah, it didn't even matter. I was like, all right, fine. I was gonna have to give it back to you anyway.
But simply, when you're looking at the board and you think like I have a queen, so I have ace queen as a queen on the board, I must be winning. If someone else is putting money in, they think they're winning too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So if you just have
but I also
one
know
pair-
that I also know that you like to live on the edge. So I was like, this might be.
But that's not true. You just think it is because I don't show you my cards unless I want you to think that I'm bluffing.
Okay.
So the one time I beat you with a bluff, I flip over my cards, and then you go, damn, he's bluffing me all the time.
Well, now I know
Then
better.
you call me all the way down when I have a straight, and I take your money from you.
Yeah, that's fair.
There you go, Seamus. But it was fun. He was hanging out. Everyone was very happy he was there.
Yeah,
they were very
true.
excited at the table.
Well, I mean, but to be fair, you pretty much ended up getting all of my money that you gave me. I don't think those other people really got much of it.
No, they didn't. Clint was there too. It was a lot of fun. It's a
Clint
fun
Russell.
game. Raymond
Shout
G.
out to
Stanley Jr.
Clint
says
Russell.
Tim always bullying Seamus.
Yeah, it wasn't fair.
But we're
So
trying.
you see this?
Seamus needs to learn how to play so he can be on poker with the boys.
That's true. I literally, so the thing is, like, when we go there, I'll play blackjack. I like blackjack. I've never really played poker before. And so to do this show, I'm really going to have to play a lot.
Poker's really
because
fun if you like to destroy people.
I guess I'm in. Yeah.
Well, so we play Fridays just for fun for like little $20 or whatever. But the whole time we're joking and saying extremely crude and offensive things that are the funniest things you'll ever hear that we can't repeat.
Oh, well, I can't do that then.
But
Because
we're
that's
like,
the part I don't like.
If we tone down some of the if we tone down some of the hate speech by a notch or two, then it'll be totally.
Why can't we just do the hate speech thing without playing poker? I'd be great at that.
I am.
That would
kidding.
take all the fun out of it.
But it's like it's like we're the jokes everyone are saying they're just unafraid, and so I'm like, we definitely need Seamus on this show. So you got to be able to play the game.
No, it's true. Look, it was fun. It was definitely fun.
Yeah.
I'll have to get some more practice in.
My problem
First time ever really playing, actually.
with poker, it's great, is that I get so competitive that I want to debase the other person's will to live in the game, like get them
Brutal.
to question their sanity. Like I will make them think that they're a loser fully just to win their money. Like
Just to bully
I get
them?
very dark and dirty when I play that game.
That's
So
how I
haven't
am
been
with the
playing a lot
blackjack
lately.
dealer. I'm like, you're
And,
gonna
and it's crazy too because some places allow really bad table etiquette.
Really?
Where like it's brutal, man. I won't play game. Like, dude, look, these are low stakes games. 1-2.
Yeah.
It's a couple $100 to buy in. You leave with a couple $100. You don't really lose a
Yeah.
lot. You might make a little bit. Someone might lose a little bit. No one's like, this is not 10 grand at the table. This is the low stakes. But there are some people who are just so nasty and they know they can win if they trigger you, if they tilt you. So they'll say stuff like if you play right but still lose, they will target you and say things that don't cross the line to get them kicked out, but will piss you off because they want you. They'll talk about your family. They'll talk about
Oh
your,
my gosh.
World
yeah,
Series of Poker.
Wild.
I don't know about an actual tournament stuff. They might tell you to stop.
Yeah.
All right, everybody,
Is
if
that
you
what
haven't
we're doing on
already,
Poker
would
with
you
the
kindly
Boys?
smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Become a member at timcast.com. Go to timcast.com, click join us. The uncensored show will be starting in a few minutes and you don't want to miss it. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me at Timcast. John, you want to shout anything out?
No, just if you want to learn more, just follow me on Twitter at John Cardillo. I'm getting beat up pretty good these days by my old friends in Trump world because I moved over to DeSantis, but it's been kind of amusing.
By the way,
Keeps it right on.
I want to mention that Dirty Dog Luke in chat says that Seamus is a bum that deliberately loses to Tim so he doesn't get kicked out. It's just untrue. I mean, on the one hand, that does help me save face at poker. But my name's Seamus Coughlin. I make cartoons. We're releasing a cartoon tomorrow. You guys are really going to enjoy it. We had a lot of fun putting it together. It took a lot to write. Like all Saturday, I was sitting there just trying to figure out more jokes to add to get it ready for y'all. So I think you guys are going to like it. Go over to Freedom Tunes, hit subscribe. And if you want to help support us in what we're doing and the team that's helping me get all this stuff together and animating it, go to freedomtunes.com and become a member. You'll get an extra cartoon each week, and you will be supporting artists who are creating content that isn't woke, that's anti-woke, that's conservative. Thank you.
I'm Ian Crossland. Follow me at Ian Crossland. I'm the best that ever was. It just continues to get better. I'm going to work on my Trump impersonation, and then you guys are going to be blown away when you hear how good it is. The best impersonation.
Seamus and I have a skit we're going to work
Oh, yeah, I'm excited for this.
John, always great to see you, man. Thank
Yeah,
you
man,
so much.
it's always fun to be here with you guys. It's always a great time.
Super fun, dude. Thanks for the data. And I also have Mr. Dupre on my right.
Yep. Serge.com here. I will cut my beard because you guys seem to care about what I look like, even though I'm on the screen for like 5 seconds an episode. But anyways, Serge.com on Twitter. See you guys later.
We will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.